after Prince David charmed and broke the evil queen's curse with a kiss. On the day of Mary and the prince's wedding, Queen Regina also came to join in the fun. She came with a vow that the next time she met, she would destroy everything Mary had. The evil queen's words that day were always imprinted in Mary's mind. She begged David to let her meet someone, a man who could see the future but was extremely cunning and dangerous. That was also the reason he was imprisoned. Then they met Rambo, Steel Skin, a character from Grimm's fairy tales. Although they covered their faces, he still knew who they were. He also knew why they came to find him. He could reveal the future, but in return, they had to tell him the name of their unborn child. Despite David's objections, Mary accepted this deal. Rambo said that the evil queen's curse was very strong and it was coming. Everyone will be imprisoned, including him. Time will stop. They will be trapped in a terrible place, separated from their loved ones. They will suffer forever. No one can stop it. They must protect the baby growing inside Mary until her 28th birthday. Then it will come back for them and the Great War will begin. As agreed, Mary told Rambo that the baby's name is Emma. In the meeting with the other fairy tale characters, David wants to fight to the end, but Jiminy Cricket thinks that is a bad idea. Mary sees it too. Their future is written. Perhaps the time has come for evil to defeat good. At this moment, the blue fairy brings a magic tree. Pinocchio and father will make it into a cabinet strong enough to resist any curse. However, no matter how strong the spell is, there is a limit. The tree can only protect one person. Time passes by. While Mary was grieving about having to enter the closet and leave David for 28 years, she suddenly had labor pains. At the same time the curse came, after Mary gave birth to Emma, she remembered that the closet could only hold one person. For the hope of the fairy tale world, they had to put the girl in the closet and pray. David protected her from the queen's soldiers. He successfully put Emma in the closet. When the soldiers arrived, the girl was no longer there. Mary saw her husband lying motionless, so she naively kissed him to wake him up, but nothing happened. Regina then went to declare her victory. Then the dark curse brought the fairy tale world to a place where there was only a happy ending for her. Just like that, Emma appeared alone in the modern world. She did not know who her parents were and why she was abandoned. Emma thought that on her 28th birthday, she would be alone like every year. Suddenly Henry appeared, the child she had abandoned. 15 years ago, she didn't know how he got here, but Emma had to take Henry home to Storybook Town. On the way, Henry said that the fairy tales in the book were still going on. Emma was also in it. Emma thought that Henry had read too many stories. He refused and gave her the exact address, which made her angry. At this time, she discovered that the clock in the square was not running. Henry said that time in Storybook was frozen by the evil queen's curse, and that fairy tale characters were imprisoned in this town. If they tried to leave, something bad would happen. Another thing was that none of them knew who they were. At this time, Archie accidentally met them. He was Jiminy Cricket in Pinocchio. He was Henry's therapist. That's how Emma learned that Henry's adoptive mother was the mayor. When they arrived at the mayor's house, Henry went straight into the house without paying attention to Regina. Regina, the evil queen, invited Emma into her house to drink cider and chat. Knowing that Henry was fine, the mayor was doing the best for him. Although Emma was reluctant, she still left. On the way, she discovered that Henry had left a book in her car. At that moment, a dog stood in the middle of the road, forcing Emma to swerve. She crashed into the town's sign. The next day, Emma woke up and found herself at the police station. She was arrested for drunk driving and vandalism. Just then, Regina went to find the police chief because Henry was missing again. Emma asked them to let her go, and she would help them find Henry. Emma discovered that Henry had used a credit card service to find his mother on his computer from a person named Mary. Now Snow White is Mary. She is Henry's teacher and the one who gave him the book. Regina went to class to ask Mary, but she didn't know anything. She didn't even know that the boy had stolen her credit card. After Regina suddenly left Mary, told Emma where Henry was, Emma brought the book back to Henry. She insisted that she was not in any book. She would not fight, but she really wanted Henry to have the best chance, because she did not want him to suffer like his mother, who was abandoned on the highway. After her adoptive parents had a child, they kicked her out onto the street. Compared to Emma, Henry is very good now. Even if Regina did not love Henry, at least she would not abandon him. Emma then took him back to her adoptive mother. She just wanted to say a few words before leaving, but Regina thought that Emma wanted to take her child back, so Regina warned and chased Emma away. Emma was not someone to be bullied. Regina wanted Emma to leave, but she refused. In the hospital where Mary volunteered, there was a man who was still in a coma. No one knew who he was. Emma went to rent a room at her grandmother's motel, the house of the grandmother and granddaughter in the story of Little Red Riding Hood. Here she met Mr. Gold, the town's boss. He was also Rambo Steelskin. The moment Emma decided to stay here, time and storybook also began to flow. The next morning, the clock bell in the square rang, surprising Regina. While Regina was still wondering why, she discovered that Emma's car was still here. Regina smiled warmly and knocked on Emma's door. She brought a basket of homegrown honey apples as a special gift, but Emma had decided to stay here for a week. When Regina heard that, her attitude immediately changed. Regina turned to threatening. At all costs, she had to chase Emma out of this town that day. After returning from Snow White's wedding, Regina went to the Forbidden Fortress to meet the dark fairy Maleficent. In the past, when Regina harmed Snow White, she exchanged the dark curse for Maleficent's sleeping curse, but the result was broken by a French kiss. Instead of returning the curse, Maleficent suggested that the evil queen raise the king for fun. In fact, Maleficent only wanted the best for Regina, because the price to pay when performing the dark curse would destroy the user. But Regina did not listen. She also threatened Maleficent's pet. Maleficent was forced to watch Regina carry the curse away. Returning, Regina summoned the darkest souls in the fairy forest. Then she took a lock of hair from each person. Finally, she sacrificed the heart of her favorite horse. As a result, nothing happened. To get the exact answer, she went to the dungeon to find Rambo, who gave her this curse. She wanted to know where she went wrong when performing the curse. Regina had to accept Rambo's deal. That is, in the new land, he would have status and money, but most importantly, as long as he said please, she had to do whatever he said, even if when he got there, he no longer remembered who he was. Because of the dark curse, Regina accepted this deal. The key ingredient of the curse is to sacrifice the heart of the thing you love the most. The heart of a horse is worthless against such a powerful curse. How far it goes depends on how heartless Regina is. Besides the magic mirror, Regina only has the old servant who is also her father. He really cares about Regina. After knowing that his heart is the missing ingredient of the curse, he tried his best to stop his daughter, because the price to pay is too high, but in the end, he still fell at her hands. Henry gave Emma the last pages of the book because it mentioned her. He thought that it was proof of the connection between Emma and Snow White's child with the prince. He also reminded Emma not to let Regina see them. If she knew Emma's true identity, it would be very dangerous. After Emma took Henry to school, she talked to the teacher. Emma was surprised when she learned that Henry thought the teacher was Snow White. If she really was Snow White's child, then Mary was her mother. Emma couldn't believe it. Emma then went to see the doctor who treated Henry's fairy tale obsession, Archie. The doctor gave Emma Henry's files so she could understand him better. But while Emma was looking at the files, Sheriff Graham came to arrest her because she stole the files from Dr. Archie. It was obvious that the doctor had lied and she was being tricked. Regina went to Henry's school and told him that Emma was a scammer. She was using the information to take advantage of Henry, but he didn't care. After school, Henry went to the police station with his teacher, Mary, to bail Emma out. After Emma found out that Mayor Regina was behind this ridiculous story, she fought back. She brought a chainsaw to cut down a branch of Regina's beloved honey apple tree. Before leaving, she left the same threat as someone had said before. However, as soon as she got back to her room, her grandmother informed her that she couldn't rent the room anymore because Regina's office ordered it. Regina wanted to use the same trick again, but Graham didn't agree. The two of them fighting back and forth would only hurt Henry. This sentence gave Regina an idea, so she called Emma to her house under the pretext of reconciliation. Regina put on a pained expression for Henry, making Emma believe. Then Regina led Emma to talk about Henry's fairy tale obsession. Emma thought that the boy couldn't distinguish between fantasy and reality. He was even a little crazy. Henry heard all of these words. It was obvious that Regina knew that the boy would come here. Emma didn't expect that Regina would dare to hurt Henry in order to chase her away. Then Emma went to see Mary. For some reason, Mary always felt very close to this girl, even though they had only met a few times. After hearing that Emma was going to leave town, Mary reminded her that who would protect Henry if she gave up. The reason Emma should stay here was because she wanted to make sure Henry was okay. Mary was right, so Emma went to Dr. Archie to find Henry and apologized to him. Emma explained that what she said to Regina was just what Regina wanted to hear. If the curse was real and Emma wanted to break it, she had to make Regina believe that they had given up. Henry was happy, and the two made up. Regina was happy that she had gotten rid of Emma when Mr. Gold came and told her that the boy was out here with his mother. He came here with a proposal. If he couldn't get rid of Emma, he was willing to help Regina with a deal, but Regina didn't want any more deals. Henry was already a deal he brought. However, Regina quickly realized that Mr. Gold had arranged this. He knew who Henry's mother was, so he let her choose the boy. Regina wanted Mr. Gold to clarify, but he said please not to answer her question. After Regina sacrificed her father's heart, she successfully carried out the dark curse. She did not forget to thank him. Talking about the meeting between Snow White Mary and Prince David, that day, she saw the royal caravan passing through the forest. She devised a plan and got a bag of jewelry. But while running away, she was caught up by the prince, but it was not easy for him to catch Snow White. Before leaving, she also gave him a scar that still remains. Tonight, Mary has a dinner date with Dr. Will at the hospital where she volunteers. While she is expressing her views on her love for him, he only focuses on the hot butt of Little Red Riding Hood, named Ruby. Mary leaves disappointed. On the way, Ruby meets Emma looking for a new room. She offers to invite Emma to stay with her temporarily, but Emma tactfully refuses. The next day, Mary goes to the hospital and finds Henry in the room of the anonymous man. After Henry asked Mary for information about him, the boy was sure that the man was Prince David. The scar on the photo was exactly the same as the scar on the man's face. Henry persuaded Emma to tell Mary about this. The two of them had to remind each other. Henry thought that if Mary read their story to the man, it might work. So Emma talked to Mary. Actually, she herself did not believe the boy's theory. However, if Mary followed it and nothing happened, it could prove that Henry's fairy tales were not true. Seeing that she had nothing to lose, Mary happily agreed. That night, Mary went to read stories to the unknown man. Something surprising happened. She quickly called Dr. Will to check, but he said that the index was stable and there was nothing unusual. Mary was strangely disappointed. She left the hospital room with a complicated mood. As soon as Mary left, Dr. Will immediately called Regina to report what had just happened. Regina knew Mary was the reason for the man's change. Her expression immediately showed calculation. One day, Mary was packing up to leave the lair when she was trapped. David found her. He came to reclaim the jewelry bag, but she had already sold it to the troll. He wanted to get his mother's heirloom ring to give to his fiancée. She felt sorry for him at that time. A marriage arranged for the good of the kingdom. David said she would take him to the buyer now. If not, he would play tricks on her. At first, Mary was not afraid. David took out the wanted poster and threatened to hand her over to Regina's army. The Black Army was not as attractive as David, so she reluctantly agreed. The next morning, Mary came to tell Emma and Henry the results. Although Dr. Will said it was just Mary's hallucination, she was sure that she was very sober at that time. That handshake was real. Henry was extremely excited. He asked Mary to read it to that person again. She immediately agreed. The two of them went to the hospital. Emma didn't understand why she liked Henry. However, when the three of them arrived at the hospital, the man was missing. Henry suspected that his adoptive mother had done something to David, but it turned out that she was the man's emergency contact. Regina had picked him up on the side of the road a few years ago. He had no identification on him. Graham and the two then reviewed the surveillance camera. They discovered that 4 hours ago, he had left the hospital alone and headed towards the forest. Now, on the way to the troll, David was curious about what Mary was wearing. It was pixie dust, a deadly weapon. It could turn the opponent into a cockroach. Mary had always kept it for a special person, the poisonous Regina. Then she told David the story of why she had to live in the forest. When David was no longer wary of Mary, she pushed him into the water and took the bag of money. But as soon as she went out, she met Regina's soldiers. Moreover, the fairy dust was hidden by David. When it seemed like Snow White was about to leave this world, David came to save her. She intended to run back and get a sword to fight with David, but she was caught. Luckily, David was not only handsome, but also a good archer. Then David asked to get the ring back. Mary led him to the bridge where she traded with the trolls. After she put out some gold coins, they appeared one by one. Talked a lot, so they agreed to return the bag. At that time, David was so excited that they thought there was a trap. They searched the two of them and discovered a wanted poster demanding Mary be handed over to Regina. David took the opportunity to fight with them to open the way for Mary. She ran for a while, and then discovered that he had been caught by them from now on. When she saved him, she sacrificed the fairy dust she worked hard to get. David also knew how important that thing was to Mary, so he was very emotional. She kept teasing him as Prince Charming, but he told her to call him David. They both had strange feelings for each other, but she did not forget that he had someone he liked. Before they went their separate ways, David said he would go find Mary no matter where she was. At that time, she did not think he was telling the truth. At this time at storybook. Emma's group found the man in a stream near the bridge. For some reason, Mary was very agitated. She even silently begged him to stay with her. After Mary gave him CPR, he woke up. It was like someone broke the sleeping spell of some princess. He was then taken to the hospital and waited for a worried woman to appear, calling him David. Regina smiled and explained to the three bewildered faces that the girl was the wife of the man lying on the hospital bed. Mary's mood was quite complicated. David's wife Catherine thanked Mary for finding Catherine's husband. At the same time, she also said that the two had an argument. Catherine was also angry, so she didn't go looking for her husband. She thought he had left town, so she didn't go looking. At this time, Dr. Will came to report on David's condition. His body was recovering very well and there was nothing to worry about. The problem was his memory. It would take a long time for him to remember everything. As for David waking up after all these years, Doc Will felt like his instinct was to find something. That was why David left the hospital. Emma felt that Catherine's story was not real. It was like it was made up, but Regina responded with extremely reasonable arguments that Emma couldn't refute. Although the person in front of her claimed to be his wife, David felt closer to the girl standing outside. Mary was confused by someone's gaze when Emma knocked on the door. She wanted to stay at Mary's house for a while. Everything in the world had to be exchanged, including magic. Cinderella was in despair because she could not attend the ball when her fairy godmother appeared. However, before she could give Cinderella the ball gown and crystal slippers, she turned into dust. Rambo killed her to take the magic wand. He did not give anything for free. All magic has its price. Because Cinderella wanted to change her life and go to the ball to meet the prince, she agreed to give something of hers to the demon Rambo. Although he did not say what it was, at that time she thought he probably only wanted gold and jewels. So Cinderella signed the agreement that Rambo wanted. Then he gave her a ball gown and a pair of crystal slippers as she wished. After taking Henry to the bus stop, Emma went to her grandmother's restaurant. In the laundry room of the restaurant, Emma accidentally met Ashley, a 19-year-old girl who was 8 months pregnant. She was alone, and her life was miserable. She was like Emma in the past. Emma was also pregnant with Henry when she was 18. Emma advised Ashley to ignore what others said, especially about the child. No one had the right to decide her life for her. If Ashley wanted to change her life, she had to stand up and decide for herself. In this world, there was no fairy godmother available for them to cry and wish for. That sincere encouragement gave Ashley the motivation. So that night, she went to Mr. Gold's pawn shop to steal something. The next morning, Mr. Gold came to ask Emma to help him find someone. It was none other than Ashley. He didn't say what she had stolen. He also didn't call the police because she was already pitiful. He just wanted to get his things back. After all, Emma's job was to find people, so it was completely reasonable for him to ask her to do this. So they began to investigate Ashley's whereabouts. Cinderella got her wish and became a royal daughter-in-law. Ashley's wedding was also attended by Snow White and her husband. Cinderella's happiest day was also the day she learned the price she had to pay. What Rambo wanted was not jewelry or jewels, but something that was gradually forming in her belly. She painfully confessed to Prince Thomas about her deal with the devil. Although Cinderella used magic to get to the prince's love for her was real. Rambo was too powerful. They couldn't fight him, so they had to use a trick to trap him. Emma went to Ruby to ask what happened, and she learned that the baby's father was Shin. He was forbidden by his family after they knew Ashley was pregnant. When Emma went to Shin's house, she learned something even more terrible. Ashley had agreed to shoot the baby in exchange for a large sum of money. The person who agreed to take the baby was none other than Miss Gold. Emma returned to the restaurant to ask Ruby about Ashley's deal with Mr. Gold. Only then did Ruby tell the truth, that Ashley had taken her car and driven to Boston. Ashley left town to start a new life. Henry was very worried when he heard that, because no fairy tale character is allowed to leave storybook. If that person tries, there will be trouble. They must find her before she gets hurt. After David discussed with Snow White and her husband, he and Prince Thomas turned a mine into a place to imprison Rambo. Snow White asked the blue birds to send a message to him. He agreed to meet Cinderella. What Cinderella had to do was tell Rambo that she was pregnant with twins. He would definitely want the other child. Then she would propose a new deal and trick him into using the blue lady's iced quill. As soon as he used it, he would be frozen immediately and the magic would be disabled. Cinderella did not forget that all magic has its price. For the sake of his wife and child, Prince Thomas was willing to pay that price. Henry guessed right. Ashley's car had an accident right on the border of town, and she was showing signs of labor. On the way to the hospital, Emma told Ashley that once she decided to keep the baby, she would not be able to run away anymore. Ashley had to grow up, and she was not allowed to let go. Cinderella went to Rambo in a depressed mood. She tried to calm down and offered to use her second child in exchange for prosperity for her dying kingdom. Seeing this beautiful feather pen, Rambo could not help but remind Cinderella that all magic has its price. If she used magic to stop him, it would only increase her debt. She could not give up halfway. Cinderella insisted on his signature. As they expected, Rambo was immediately frozen. Cinderella and Thomas were happy because they did not have to worry about losing their child anymore. Prince Thomas even named the baby Alexandra. Suddenly, Cinderella had a stomachache. Prince Thomas ran to the well to get water for her. After the pain passed, Cinderella discovered that her husband had disappeared. She angrily went to find Rambo, but he did nothing. She used magic, so she had to pay a price. No matter what world it was, only if he had the child could Cinderella see her husband again. The doctor came to report that Ashley had given birth successfully, making Emma secretly relieved. Mr. Gold was also very happy. Emma was determined to prevent him from taking the child away, so he suggested that if Ashley wanted to keep the child, she had to make a deal with him. Emma agreed, so she owed him a favor. After Ashley found out, she was very grateful to Emma. The baby's father also came to visit the mother and child, making her very happy. After what just happened, Emma decided to stay here, so she went to work as an assistant to Chief Graham. Regina would object, but Graham didn't care, because it was his police department. Jiminy was a boy who had to follow his parents to steal and cheat since he was little. He didn't like it, and he wanted to be a good person, but they did not agree, and still manipulated Jiminy's mind. When Jiminy grew up, every time he wanted to give up this evil job, his parents used the excuse of old age and poor health to control him. That made Jiminy extremely miserable. Today, his family went to a small village. This was also the place that would change his life. Emma criticized Graham's ugly uniform, so she only used a police badge. The moment Emma put it on, the town suddenly shook violently. There was an old mine collapse. A large crowd gathered. Regina knew that Emma was working as Graham's assistant, so she looked at him with a very resentful look. Then she calmed the people. She also promised to level the place and restore the town. Henry accidentally saw his foster mother pick up a piece of broken glass and secretly put it in her pocket. That action stimulated Henry. He would not let his foster mother destroy this place. What if there was something down there? Henry gathered Archie and Emma together and wanted them to help him stop Regina. He thought that the collapse proved that the curse was weakening. Emma was changing the place. At this moment, Regina came and interrupted the small meeting of the three. She chased Emma away and forced Archie to change his treatment method. If he didn't, she would make his delusions disappear. She would fire him and make him homeless. The next day at therapy, Henry excitedly said that he would go down the mine to find out. In order to stop Henry, Archie said something against his conscience and hurt him. Mary was always by David's side to help him recover. He was only a few days away from being discharged from the hospital. The two had a great time, but Mary felt terrible. She even wished Catherine was a bad person. Emma couldn't help but remind Mary not to get involved with a married person. She was so smart and lovely that she didn't deserve to suffer because of that person. At this time, Henry, on the verge of tears, and told his mother. Emma immediately went to find Archie to ask for forgiveness. He was the one who warned her, but now he said things that ruined Henry. Archie had his own troubles. He was about to explain when Regina called to report that Henry was missing. Archie knew where Henry was. Jiminy's desire grew so much that on his face there were only 4 words missing: I want freedom. So when Jiminy came to deliver the goods to Rambo, as soon as he asked, Jiminy immediately burst out. Rambo said that if Jiminy wanted freedom, he would mix this liquid into his parents' food and drink. In return, after the poison took effect, Rambo would come and take them away. He had someone to take care of his parents and he was free, so he agreed to this deal. One evening, Jiminy and his parents went to a young couple's house to rest. They treated Jiminy's family very kindly. Not long after, Jiminy's parents started acting. They said there was an epidemic recently, and there was only one vial left. The couple was so scared that they used all the valuables in the house to exchange for the potion. After Jiminy gave them the fake potion, he decided to put an end to these evils. He took out Rambo's poison and poured it on his parents. But nothing happened, because they had switched the poison and the fake potion. When Jiminy returned to the house, the young couple had turned into two puppets. He was stunned to see their faces still filled with fear. At this time, their son returned. The guilt surrounding Jiminy made the world spin. Henry went deep into the mine and found a piece of broken glass. While he was examining it, there was another shaking. Emma and Archie were checking outside the mine and were worried that something had happened to Henry. Archie ignored the danger and crawled inside. Then the mine door was also blocked by rocks. Archie found Henry, but because Henry wanted to prove himself to Archie, he ran deeper. Henry finds something glowing in a hole in the rock, but Archie doesn't care. Archie wants Henry to see reality. The two are trapped in an abandoned mine with no way out. Only then does Henry realize the seriousness of the problem. People outside, including Regina, are trying to rescue them, but halfway there is a shake. The two mothers have to put aside their dangerous feelings to rescue Henry before the air runs out. Inside the mine, Archie and Henry follow the sound of Pongo on the ground. They come to an old elevator. While the two are trying to make the elevator go up, people outside are setting a bomb to open the entrance to the mine. The explosion fails to open the way and causes the elevator to fall straight down after going up a little. At the hospital, Mary is about to leave work when David comes to ask her to go for a walk with him. She can't refuse. David feels like nothing around him is real except Mary. She was the only thing here that made sense to him. Before Mary could be happy, Catherine arrived. Mary quickly left because this feeling was uncomfortable. Everyone was panicking when Emma noticed Pongo. The dog led them to a vent. Henry and Archie had a moment of silence, and they looked back at themselves. The two apologized to each other. At this time, Emma began to swing down to rescue them. When she held Henry, the elevator seemed to be about to fall. At the crucial moment, Archie managed to hook an umbrella to Emma's belt and escaped death. The three were pulled up to everyone's joy. Immediately after, Regina changed her attitude. This made Emma extremely angry. After going through the incident, Archie also heard Henry's words of encouragement. Archie became stronger when he faced Regina. He said he would continue to treat Henry in his own way. Archie reminded Regina that one day, when she had to go to court in a custody battle, the court would consult person who treated Henry. Who the boy goes to depends on her attitude towards Archie. Don't force your conscience to follow her will. Jiminy secretly wished to heaven and earth. He hoped for a miracle to happen to that couple. But the Blue Fairy was sorry because she couldn't return the parents to the child. What's done is done. The Blue Fairy had a way for Jiminy to make amends. The child would face many challenges in the future. Jiminy could be by his side to accompany him. Jiminy had also completely despaired of his parents, so the fairy turned Jiminy into a cricket. From then on, Jiminy Cricket became close brothers with Pepito from Storybook. The powerful curse couldn't stop the friendship of those two men. After Mary thought it over, she decided to apply for leave from the hospital. While everyone was celebrating, Regina secretly dropped the piece of glass she picked up back into the mine. Obviously, there was something hidden underneath. Once upon a time, there was a King Midas who was famous for his hand that could turn everything he touched into gold. Midas's kingdom was being ravaged by a dragon. He had offered a reward everywhere for anyone who could cut off its head. Among those who tried was Prince James. King Midas had paid him a golden sword in advance as a pledge. However, as soon as he left, the man who had just been defeated by Prince James suddenly stood up. He died easily. King George was very miserable. Now no one could kill the dragon in exchange for gold to save the kingdom. The king and queen could not have children. Prince James was the agreement between them and Rambo. This time he wanted Rambo to revive the prince. In return, he would tell Rambo where the fairy godmother of his family lived. Rambo could not raise the dead, but there was someone who could find someone to kill the dragon and bring gold back to the kingdom. That was Prince James's twin brother. That time, Prince James's mother gave him to the king in exchange for a farm, because the family was too poor at that time. This time, Rambo wanted her to exchange the remaining child. The younger brother would pretend to be Prince James and kill the dragon without having to do anything. King George's warrior would do everything. He only needed to bring the dragon's head back to King Midas. He only needed to return in the glory of a hero. In return, he would not have to worry about the farm anymore. King George would not let his mother mother lack anything. That was what he had always wanted. So Prince James was reborn in a different way. Before, he had only held a stick to chase the goats. He had not even touched the sword, but now they forced him to kill the dragon. When they reached the dragon's cave, 4 warriors rushed in. They left Prince James with 2 warriors outside. Within 2 minutes, there was a scream. He ignored the other 2 and rushed to the cave entrance. He carried the wounded warrior out. The dragon then burned the other 2 warriors. Only Prince James was left. He suddenly saw a crevice in the rock. An idea came to his mind. Prince James quickly grabbed the golden sword and ran into the crevice. The dragon chased him and got its head stuck. King Midas was very pleased with Prince James. He not only rewarded the gold as promised, but also gave his Princess Abigail to the prince. This was not in their agreement. Prince James wanted to object but was stopped by King George. If he refused this marriage, the kingdom would be destroyed. King George himself would kill him and his mother. Today David was discharged from the hospital and returned home. Catherine said he used to dislike this house because it had a windmill. David also nodded in agreement, but he did not remember anything. Everyone held a small party to welcome David home. By chance, he met Emma and her son. Knowing that Mary was busy today and did not come, David was a bit disappointed. The party lasted for a while, and Catherine did not see David anymore. Because he went to Mary's house, here he confessed his feelings, but Mary denied it. When she returned home, Mary was very confused, but she didn't know what to do. David was married, but he and Mary had feelings for each other. Seeing Mary was confused about their relationship, Emma invited her to drink. At the same time, Emma advised Mary that if she thought what she wanted to do was wrong, then don't do it. She should be strong and forget about this relationship. Mary heard that. She also clinked glasses and determined to follow Emma's words. David was looking at old photos when Catherine came to kiss him, but this kiss didn't make him regain his memories or feelings for his wife. It only made his feelings for Mary grow stronger. The next day, Mayor Regina came to find Mary and warned her not to get close to David anymore. David had decided to leave his wife because of Mary. Mary was confused and didn't understand what was going on. Regina emphasized that if Mary was going to do anything, she would only destroy him. She should decide wisely. David went to the classroom to find Mary. He explained that it was all because of him. He couldn't pretend to his wife anymore. Catherine deserved someone better. The person who chose Catherine and chose that life was no longer there. David now chose a life with Mary. Before leaving, David asked Mary to come to the bridge where she saved him at 8 o'clock tonight. She should think about what he said. If she didn't come, he would understand and not bother her anymore. Hearing these words, she felt like exploding. Graham bought delicious bear bread for Emma to ask her to replace him on the night shift. He said that he had to volunteer suddenly at the homeless shelter. The reason was very reasonable, so Emma agreed. Actually, because the bread was delicious, she accepted. At this time, Mary rushed to Emma and asked what she should do when David said that. Emma knew that David had left his wife, so she encouraged Mary. Emma told Mary to do what her heart told her. Mary felt very happy, even dressed up beautifully, and went ahead to wait for David. That night, while David was looking for the bridge, he met Regina. She showed him the way, but when he arrived at Mr. Gold's pawn shop, there was no way out. As Regina had said, David had no choice but to go inside and ask Mr. Gold for directions. When he was about to leave, he happened to see a windmill. His memories returned. He also remembered the reason why he and Catherine got married. Prince James returned home to visit his mother. King George had given her a good life as he had promised, but today he came back to say goodbye. Marrying Princess Abigail did not allow him to reveal his true identity. His mother deeply regretted letting him agree to that deal. The two had to be separated forever. She had caused her remaining son to lose his freedom. Before Prince James left, she gave him her and her husband's wedding ring. True love will follow this ring, wherever it is. All she wanted was for her son to be happy. Mary was excited when she saw David, but the next second he said he remembered all the strong feelings for Mary were real, but he had to do the right thing and go back to Catherine. This statement was so painful that Mary had to hold back her tears. In the end, this relationship still meant nothing. Emma was patrolling the mayor's house last night at Regina's house when she found a thief. She didn't expect it to be Graham. He denied it, but after a few questions, she found out everything. Graham lied to get to Regina. They did it while Henry was sleeping. The night was longer because of 2 broken hearts. The marriage of Prince James and Princess Abigail was decided. On the way to the new palace with his fiancée, Prince James met his destiny, Snow White. Ever since Emma caught Graham doing that with Regina, she has been avoiding him. That made Graham extremely uncomfortable. He tried to explain that he had no feelings for Regina, but Emma didn't care. Graham didn't know what the current feeling was called. He only knew that he was very sad when Emma looked at him with that hateful look. He didn't know why he kissed her. Suddenly, countless images of the forest with a wolf with 2 colors of eyes popped into Graham's head. His mind became confused. So Graham went to Regina's house. It was the first time he took the initiative with her. That night, Graham dreamed that he was hunting a deer. The wolf with 2 colors of eyes was his companion. It was an extremely intense dream. After Graham told her, Regina persuaded him to forget it. Graham left in a state of confusion. When he bent down to pick up the key, he saw the wolf. Graham followed the direction of the wolf's cry. Finally, at dawn, he caught up with it. Graham watched it leave. He whistled unconsciously. But when he heard the familiar voice, it turned back and acted spoiled. When he touched the wolf's head, another series of images appeared. Surprisingly, he saw Mary. Graham was forced to go to Mary. He asked her if they had met in another life. For example, in a previous life. Hearing this, Mary assumed that Graham had come to see Henry and heard him tell fairy tales. She advised him not to believe such nonsense. But Graham brought his doubts to Henry. Henry said he was in his fairy tale book. Henry Snow White's son had died. The next one would be Snow White. To kill her quickly, Regina sought out a hunter who had been raised by wolves. He was lonely and also heartless. He would not be moved by Snow White. In return, Regina would ban wolf hunting. She fulfilled the hunter's very simple request. The hunter, under the queen's orders, took Snow White into the woods for a walk. However, Snow White was a very smart and perceptive girl, so she soon realized that the knight beside her was not her father's man. So she knocked down the hunter and ran away. The hunter quickly found her, but she was not running, but trying to finish writing the letter. She did not know this forest well. This person was clearly a good hunter. No matter how she ran, she would be caught. So she prepared herself to wait for death. Snow White asked the hunter to send this letter to Regina, but what was written in the letter touched his heart. After that, Snow White was released. Instead of Snow White's heart, the hunter brought back a deer heart. Graham said that he started seeing those strange images after kissing Emma. Henry asked Graham what else he saw after kissing Emma. Graham said that he was holding a knife and next to her was Teacher Mary. Henry said he intended to hurt her, right? Graham was surprised that Henry knew that. Henry explained that because Mary was Snow White, so that means he's a hunter. Now it makes more sense. Graham was raised by wolves and the 2-eyed wolf just wanted to help him, and Graham kissing Emma triggered memories to come back. Henry thought that because Snow White owed the hunter her life, Snow White's daughter Emma had a special connection with him. The ending of the hunter in the story made Graham shiver. Then Regina took the hunter's heart, making him unable to have feelings anymore. Graham asked Henry about a symbol in the book. Henry said it was Regina's cellar, where she kept the hunter's heart. When he returned to the palace, the hunter offered the heart to Regina. However, because it wasn't a human heart, the drawers wouldn't open. She was very angry. But anyway, it would be a waste for such a good hunter to leave. So Regina took his heart and left him as her pet. If the hunter wanted to run away, the heart would break. Then she had the soldiers take him to the bedroom. Graham left Henry's house, and he met Emma. She felt sorry for him. How hard it must have been for him to seek help from a 10-year-old. Unlike Emma, Graham believed that his heart had been stolen. Now he just wanted to follow the wolf to find that cellar. She advised him and helped him feel the heartbeat. She was trying to explain that the wolf wasn't real when she saw it. They followed it to the town cemetery. Finally, the wolf stopped in front of a place with the same symbol as in the book, so they rushed inside to look for Graham's heart. But there was no secret mechanism or pit in there, just a coffin in the middle. Regina's voice rang out outside. It turned out that this was her father's grave. Since she was here, Graham said that he would end their relationship. Not because of Emma, but because he knew who it was, because of who he felt nothing. Regina reminded him to think carefully, but he was very determined. Regina blamed Emma for taking what she loved. First it was Henry, and now it was Graham. Emma said she didn't take anyone. She said they were scared, so they left. Suddenly, Regina punched Emma. After returning a punch to Regina, Emma and Graham also left one by one. The tomb really had a secret mechanism, located right under the coffin. Then, Regina took out Graham's heart. If she didn't get what she wanted, no one else would. At the police station, Graham was taking good care of Emma. The atmosphere became awkward. This time, Emma took the initiative. That kiss helped Graham regain all his memories. But right after that, his heart was completely shattered. It turned to dust under Regina's hands. It had been 2 weeks since Graham died. Today, Mr. Gold called Emma to remind her that the position of police chief could not be left empty. It was time for an assistant like her to take it. Among Graham's remaining belongings, Mr. Gold chose 2 walkie-talkies and gave them to Emma. He also advised her to play with Henry. The time parents spend with their children is extremely precious. Don't wait until you lose them and then realize realize it's too late. Although Emma felt that Mr. Gold was a bit strange, she still accepted them. She brought the walkie-talkies to Henry's secret base. The boy decided to stop breaking the curse because he didn't want his mother to be like Graham. This was what Emma wanted, but she wasn't happy at all. Regina used her position to appoint Sydney from the newspaper office as police chief. She fired Emma. Graham died unjustly, and Emma was fired. This feeling of failure made her angry. Suddenly, Mr. Gold came to Emma with the right to run the town. He was dissatisfied with the mayor's actions and expressed that he was on her side. Mr. Gold also found a key point that the mayor didn't have as much power as she thought. In a certain country, several children of all ages were forced to join the Ogre War. This time, the Duke reduced the age to 14. The people could only obediently hand over their children. If anyone dared to resist, they would be dealt with by the Dark Knight. Rambo's son would be 14 in 3 days. He had only one relative, and he could not let them take him away. So before dawn, Rambo led his son to escape. On the way, he met a beggar, so he gave the beggar the little money he had. But unfortunately, they ran into the Duke's soldiers. It turned out that Rambo was a deserter. His wife could not stand this cowardly husband, so she left. The soldier wanted to capture his son to punish him for his treason. In order to protect the child, Rambo accepted the humiliation. At this time, the beggar came to help Rambo. He also said that he would help Rambo. Another day passed, and Rambo was extremely depressed. His life was a failure. He was a disabled coward with no friends. The only thing he had was his son. If they took him away, he would be nothing but dust. Hearing that, the beggar told Rambo a shocking secret. The Duke of this country had a mysterious dagger. It had the real name of the Dark Knight engraved on it. That was how he controlled the night. As long as Rambo could control the Dark Knight, no one would dare to take his son away. What Rambo needed to do now was to steal the dagger. But Rambo was very scared. No one dared to enslave the Dark Knight. At this time, the beggar suggested to Rambo, if Rambo did not dare to control it, the beggar could possess that power. With the power, he could not only save his son, but also do many other things. This motivation makes Rambo no longer afraid. Unlike Rambo, his son wanted to fight and die heroically on the battlefield. But his father was so determined that he couldn't bear to see him sad. So he and his father used sheep fat and wool to burn the Duke's castle. Rambo took advantage of the fire and got the dagger. Joshua's name was engraved on it. The town newspaper reported that Emma had given birth in prison. The news was sealed, but was leaked by Regina. Fortunately, Henry didn't pay much attention. He began to believe that good would not overcome evil, because evil was willing to play dirty, but good was not. Henry knew that Mr. Gold was behind his mother's support, so he was even more worried. Mr. Gold was even more terrifying than Mrs. Regina. Emma already owed him a favor, so she couldn't owe him more. Emma went to the mayor's office to talk to Regina. She didn't care about Henry's feelings. She just needed to win Emma in the election. While talking, Regina opened the door. Who would have thought the place was on fire? She begged Emma to save her. Emma was not a petty person, so she ran to get the fire extinguisher and came back. As soon as she left the building, Regina's attitude changed. However, many people had seen Emma save the mayor from the fire. Some people started to lean towards her. She accidentally saw the wool that smelled of mutton fat. She had smelled it before at Mr. Gold's place. Mr. Gold had just said that Emma could not win unless she did something big like saving people. Emma completely disagreed with that. She did not want to participate in this dirty political war anymore. Mary went to put up flyers for Emma when she accidentally met David. The awkward atmosphere made her feel suffocated. David wanted to talk more, but Mary had left. Backstage, everyone was preparing for the debate. Emma thought a lot. She just wanted to show Henry that good will always win, but it seemed like she had disappointed him. Sydney's speech was absolutely perfect, not a single word off script. When it was Emma's turn, she exposed Mr. Gold in front of the entire crowd. The fire was set up and she was not a hero. Everyone was silent. Mr. Gold left the hall angrily. Regina thought to herself that victory was in her hands. After Rambo got the knife, he let his son go home first and wait. Then he summoned the Dark Knight Joshua. Joshua used Rambo's son to provoke him. He was a coward and only knew how to run away, while his son wanted to fight and die gloriously. He sacrificed a lot, but in the end it was for someone else's child. Rambo was angry and stabbed the Dark Knight in the heart. He did not expect him to be a beggar. Death is a release. He borrowed Rambo's hand to remove the burden of his life. Magic always has its price. Now it was Rambo's turn to pay his debt. As soon as Joshua died, Rambo's hand holding the knife also turned black. Rambo's name was also changed to his. The next morning, Rambo returned just as his son was about to be taken away. Now that Rambo had power, he had completely lost himself. Rambo's son was left with nothing but fear when he saw Rambo like this. Emma was confiding in Henry at her grandmother's restaurant. Regina and Sydney came to announce the election results. The votes were very close, but some people liked Emma's idea of fighting Mr. Gold, so she won the position of sheriff. Actually, it was all part of Mr. Gold's plan. Her courage to save the mayor wasn't enough to pull everyone to Emma's side. The people in town feared Regina, but they feared him even more. Emma stood up to him, and she would win points in their eyes. Of course, he didn't just give Emma the position. A sheriff would do more than a voiceless Emma. Besides, Emma owed Mr. Gold a debt. Once upon a time, at the edge of the forest, there lived two twin sisters, Gretel and Hansel. Today, the two followed their father into the forest to cut firewood. The father assigned the two children to collect firewood. Before leaving, he gave Gretel a compass so that the two children would know the way back. He also told them that as a family, they would always find each other. After finishing their work, the two followed the compass back to their father, but they couldn't find him anywhere. When they heard a strange sound, they ran to the main road to find their father, but they met Regina's group. The two children ran away when Regina tried to catch them. After they were caught, she asked them to do something for her. In return, she would take them home. So Regina took Hansel and Gretel to the blind witch's house. What the two children needed to do was wait until it was dark when the blind witch was fast asleep. Then they sneaked in and stole the black leather bag to bring back to Regina. The house was enchanted, so only children could enter. Before leaving, Regina told them something important. The two children were not allowed to eat anything in that house. The whole house was made of cakes, and the inside was full of cakes and candies. How could a hungry child bear it? Although Gretel had reminded him many times, Hansel still could not control himself. When Gretel had just taken the black leather bag, Hansel took a bite of cake from behind and woke up the blind witch. The two children ran away, but it was too late. She locked the two children up. Because Hansel was fatter, the blind witch would kill him first. Gretel had to find a way to turn the situation around, so she held her breath and pretended to be Hansel. As soon as Gretel got out of the cage, she immediately stole the key and gave it to Hansel. Hansel was confused and fell down, making a noise that angered the blind witch. She aggressively grabbed Hansel. Gretel saw this and immediately rushed forward, pushed the witch onto the grill, and pushed her into the oven. Regina saw this scene through the magic mirror and happily lit the blind witch on fire. The two children completed their mission and returned. The item she needed turned out to be a poisoned apple. Instead of keeping her promise, Regina said that her father had abandoned the two children. The two children did not need to return to their family. They could stay in the palace and live happily. But Gretel did not accept it. Even if her father really abandoned them, she did not want to live with a horrible person like Regina. Hearing that, she used magic to take the two children out of the palace. Today at Storybook, two sisters, Ava and Nicholas, came to get to know Henry. When the three of them left the convenience store, they were stopped. It turned out that Ava and Nicholas had used Henry to steal things. Mayor Regina came to bail Henry out. Because the phone number Ava gave her parents was unreachable, the two children would be handed over to Sheriff Emma. Ava said that her family was in trouble, so she had to do that. She hoped Emma would not tell them. Emma then drove them home and agreed not to tell their parents. But as soon as she left, the two children ran into an abandoned house. It was because of suspicion that Emma followed them that she learned that the two children had no parents. She took Ava and Nicholas to her home. Their mother had died several years ago. There was no information about the father. Emma had not contacted social services. As an orphan herself, she had lived there for 16 years, so she knew better than anyone that people would adopt children, and then, when they were no longer needed, they would be thrown back to where they started. Emma and Mary could not afford to take the children, so she decided to find their father. He might not know of their existence. She did not know if he would want them. But one thing she was sure of was that no home would take both children. Then they would be separated. Hearing this, Ava begged Emma not to do it. They could not be separated. Emma went to the town hall office to see Ava and Nicholas's birth certificates, but those papers had been transferred. Regina contacted social services. They arranged for the two sisters to each live in a Boston group home. Emma was the sheriff, so she was responsible for taking the children there. Emma was trying to find the father, so the two children wouldn't be taken away. Henry then brought his fairy tale book to his mother. He said Ava and Nicholas were actually Gretel and Hansel. In the story, it was said that the father abandoned them, but Henry knew for sure that he was there, because no one could leave the storybook. Back home, Emma had an idea. She had a baby blanket, the only thing she had from her parents. It was a good thing Ava and Nicholas had one too. It was a broken compass that belonged to their father. Emma took the compass to Mr. Gold to find out who it belonged to. Luckily, he knew who it belonged to. Mr. Gold's condition was that Emma forgive him in exchange for the man's name. She agreed to his idea. Michael looked at the picture of the two children, but he had had no memory of it, because he only did that with the children's mother once. He didn't believe he had children and twins at that. So Emma took out the compass, and Michael admitted it. Emma didn't want the two children to have the same unhappy childhood as her. She tried her best to convince Michael to accept the two children, but he just returned the compass and apologized. She helplessly told Mary about it. Regina came to remind Emma that she had to take the two children to Boston tonight. Emma had to follow the order, but no fairy tale character could leave this town. When approaching the milestone, Emma suddenly had a problem. In the fairy tale world, Hansel and Gretel's father didn't abandon them. Regina made him, so they obediently followed her request. Regina brought their father, and all she wanted to ask was why they gave up their happy life and chose to blindly trust their father, who might have abandoned them. Simply because they are family and family will always find each other. Then Regina let their father go. The two children woke up in the forest and they began their journey to find their way back to him. Ava discovered that the broken compass was working again. At the same time, the mechanic that Emma called also arrived. That person was Michael. Emma left Henry because she had to. Michael had a choice. He saw two small eyes looking at him with anticipation. He could not be stubborn anymore. It was good that Hansel and Gretel finally met their father. Through Ava and Nicholas's story, Emma suddenly felt that she should give up looking for her parents. Mary thought that maybe Emma's parents had a reason for doing so. There was no reason. Henry's theory sounded more true, that Emma's parents put her in the magic cabinet and sent her to this world. Mary was curious who Henry thought Emma's parents were. Emma suddenly became serious and said Mary. Mary accidentally saw Emma's baby blanket. She felt it was so familiar. She couldn't help but smell the milk on it. That evening, when Emma and her son were talking on the side of the road, they saw a man riding a motorbike into town. Emma was Snow White's daughter, so she could go to Storybook. But this person was a stranger. Why did he come here? It was only 7:10, but Mary was in a hurry to go to school. This made Emma feel strange. She wasn't going to school, but to her grandmother's restaurant to wait for someone. A person would come to the restaurant every 7:15 to buy coffee. She created a very genuine meeting just to say a few words to David. Mary was caught by Emma, so she had to confess her plan. She couldn't give up her feelings for David. She not only pretended to meet him, but she also knew what time he would come home from work. She also knew what day he would go to the supermarket. Mary wished there was a medicine that could help her forget this man. Snow White in the fairy tale world had also been lovesick since saying goodbye to the prince. Snow White couldn't help but ask Little Red Riding Hood about his whereabouts. She thought she had forgotten him for a long time. Unexpectedly, when she heard that he would get married in 2 days, her heart skipped a beat. She wished there was a way to get that image out of her head. Little Red Riding Hood told Snow White about Rambo, so Snow White rode to the meeting place to make a deal with that scheming devil. She wanted to buy a medicine for a broken heart, so Rambo gave Snow White a bottle of enchanted river water. As long as she drank it, she would completely forget who that person was. Rambo's condition for exchange was just a strand of Snow White's hair. Today was the day David went to the supermarket. Mary accidentally bumped into his wife. She also knew they were planning to have a child. This made her heart ache even more. King George saw that Prince James's heart was not here. He warned James not to think he could escape this marriage. Nothing could stop the wedding from happening. David wrote a letter and let the dove deliver it to Snow White. While walking, Mary found a dove caught in a net. Mary took it to the zoo where David worked. The doctor there said the dove was fine. It was migrating and tended to find a mate. If they did not release it back to the flock, this dove would be lonely forever. The town was about to have a storm, but Mary still wanted to go into the woods to release it back to the flock. David offered to go with her, but she firmly refused. Regina came to find Emma and wanted her to pay attention to that strange man. Regina wanted Emma to investigate who he was and why he was there. At first, Emma refused, until she learned that he had approached Henry. She reconsidered. Snow White was about to use the bottle of water to forget love when the prince's dove arrived. In the letter, he confessed his feelings. He wanted to know Snow White's answer. If she came to see him, they would run away together. If not, he would have his own answer. So Snow White pretended to be a flower seller to get into the palace. Snow White did not know that King George had always been interested in the prince, so she was arrested before meeting him. Snow White was thrown into prison. She tried every way to escape, but in vain. Her cellmate was a dwarf named Victor. He was also framed for love and put here. At this time, a dwarf named Neil broke into the palace to free Victor. Because he sympathized with Snow White, Victor unlocked the lock to free her. Halfway there, Snow White suggested going out through the wall, but Victor and Neil chose to leave through the main gate. As soon as they went out, they were caught by George's soldiers. Neil refused to stop, so he was knocked out on the spot. When King George dealt with Victor, Snow White appeared. She surrendered herself in exchange for Victor's freedom. In Storybook, Mary took the doves to a ravine when she suddenly slipped. Luckily, she grabbed onto a large tree root. When Mary was about to lose her temper, David suddenly appeared. David was not comfortable letting her go into the forest alone. That's why he was there in time at this dangerous moment. Mary hurriedly wanted to release the doves, but it started to rain heavily. David had to persuade her to find a place to shelter from the rain first, and then release the doves. The two went to an abandoned cabin in the forest. He covered her with a blanket to warm her, but she struggled. Mary miserably said that she still had feelings for David. She showed up at her grandmother's shop at 7:15 every day, just to see him. The closer she was to him, the happier she was, but also the more heartbroken she was. Hearing that, David laughed because the reason he went to Mary's grandmother's restaurant at that time was also to see her. When the two were about to kiss, Mary suddenly remembered that David's wife seemed to be pregnant. David did not know about this. They did not plan to have children. Just then, the rain stopped. Mary made an excuse and quickly took the pigeon out. The flock of birds stayed to wait for the storm to pass. This pigeon was finally able to return to its friend. Back to the story of the two people. Mary did not want to let go of her feelings anymore. She wanted them to forget each other. She said this to David, but she was too lazy to say it to herself. When Emma went to the restaurant, she met a strange man. She suspected that the suitcase he was carrying with him had something bad in it. However, it was just a typewriter. This man was a writer. He just wanted to find some inspiration in this town. Snow White was worried that she would not meet the prince, but King George did not stop her because he wanted her to go to Prince James and tell him she did not love him. If she did not do it, Prince James would die. The marriage would fail, but Prince James would die as a hero. King Midas would forgive her and the merger of the two kingdoms would still proceed. After all, Prince James was not his biological son. Prince David was happy to see his dream lover, but what she said broke their hearts. She said she never loved him. He should fill his heart with love for someone else. David asked his wife about the pregnancy. Catherine really wanted a child. She knew her husband was still trying to mend their relationship, but she felt like he was here, but his soul was somewhere else. When the pregnancy test showed no pregnancy, she felt better. David reassured Catherine that he hoped she would understand. He would try to love her more. It was 7:10. This time David did not come to the restaurant. He respected Mary's decision. She did too. Emma held Mary's hand tightly, encouraging her that everything would be okay. Snow White sadly left the palace. Victor and his friends had been waiting for her for a long time. Victor wanted to take her home. Today they all lost someone they loved. Victor was grateful to Snow White for saving him, so the 7 dwarfs volunteered to protect and take care of her. Snow White was very grateful. She took out the magic potion and was about to drink it, but Victor stopped her. When the pain was too much, she could drink it at any time. However, not today. She was no longer alone, but she had them by her side. So Snow White went to live with the 7 dwarfs. Prince James broke off the engagement and went to look for Snow White. Little Red Riding Hood saw him and was happy for Snow White. Victor rushed to tell Snow White this news, but it was too late. She had drunk the magic potion and no longer remembered who Prince James was. David was late on purpose, but he still met Mary at her grandmother's shop. If it's fate, no matter how you try to avoid it, it's still the same. So Mary and David unleashed their intense feelings right on the street. Mary was having breakfast with Emma when she received a text message from David asking to meet. As soon as she left, Sydney came to talk to Emma. He came with an angry face and offered to help her expose Regina's true face, because Regina had fired him from the newspaper. She also made a fool of him during the police chief election. Emma didn't trust Sydney. He just gave her his business card so that if she changed her mind, she could contact him. The storm damaged Henry's secret base. Regina used that as an excuse to destroy the boy's wooden castle. The fairy tale book Henry left there also disappeared. He couldn't stand Regina anymore. Emma agreed to join Sydney's plan to expose Regina. Mary and David had a secret date in the woods. Even though they knew it was wrong, they put it aside. They enjoyed this happy time first. Emma went to the meeting place to meet Sydney. He revealed that $50,000 in the budget had disappeared. Regina was responsible for it. Their plan was to find out what Regina was doing. They would expose her true face to everyone. What they needed to do now was to secretly follow and collect evidence. But as a police chief, Emma wanted to investigate transparently, so the two of them reviewed the documents. They found the record of the $50,000 in the budget had disappeared. It was obvious that something was wrong. Sydney convinced Emma to do it his way. It was okay to do bad things for good reasons. To protect herself and Henry, she had to be fierce. Then the two went to ask Regina about the lost file. Regina said that it had turned to ashes in the fire a few days ago. Unable to refute, the two had no choice but to leave. However, Emma had installed a listening device on Regina's desk. Sydney's method was still quicker and easier. They quickly got some good news. Tonight she would go into the forest to pay someone, very secretly. That night, the two followed Regina into the forest. At the turn, Emma's car suddenly lost its brakes. Luckily, the car stopped when it collided with some large rocks. Sydney got out to check and found that the car's brakes had been broken. It turned out that Regina knew they were eavesdropping on her. Emma angrily went around looking for Regina, but she met Mr. Gold. So the person who had made the deal with Regina was him. She had bought a piece of land in the forest from Mr. Gold. As for what she would do, no one said. The two could only watch his back curiously. They didn't go home after that, but went straight to Regina's office. Emma had to find out why Regina bought the land. Emma broke the glass door and set off an alarm. If the alarm went off, the police would come, and Emma was the police chief. It was only logical that she would be there. Emma had unlocked Regina's computer and printed out the documents. She was going to take the time to find Henry's books. Suddenly, Regina appeared out of nowhere. Emma said that some naughty kids had broken the door. She was a police officer, so she had to check. Sydney, who happened to see the incident, was a witness. The reason was so logical that Regina couldn't blame them. She had no choice but to let Emma go. When they returned, they saw the blueprints, but they couldn't figure out what Regina was planning to build. It didn't matter because the account statements were all in Regina's name. That was enough. Emma was worried that this was all illegal evidence. It would definitely be thrown out of court. Sydney's purpose was not to put Regina in jail. He just wanted to show everyone her true face. Sydney then showed Emma the photos he secretly took of her and Henry. Regina had Sydney following the two of them for a long time. She had been waiting for the right moment to act. Hearing that, Emma no longer hesitated. At the council meeting, Sydney and Emma stood up to denounce Mayor Regina. The two said that she had used the city budget to build a wasteful house in the woods. Everyone was talking and looking at Regina with suspicious eyes. Surprisingly, Regina was very straightforward in admitting it. She said that what she was building was a children's playhouse. Regina wanted to give Henry and the children at Storybook a safe place to play. Their plan failed miserably. Because of this, Emma lost the upper hand. Regina used the law to prevent Emma from seeing Henry until she allowed it. Emma happened to go to her grandmother's restaurant and found Sydney sadly drinking beer alone. They both looked back at themselves. Sydney also reassured Emma that if this plan failed, there would be other ways. At least now she had him as an ally. The story is about a genie who was accidentally summoned by a king. As usual, he gave the person who cleaned the lamp 3 wishes, but this king had everything, from wealth, love to a prosperous kingdom, so he didn't need to wish for anything. The genie confided to the king that the genie's life was extremely boring and it was repetitive. The king saw that the genie wanted to be free, so the king wished for his freedom. As for the last 2 wishes, the king returned them to the genie. After making 1001 wishes, the genie had witnessed 1001 miserable endings. Each wish had its price, so he was determined not to use them. Now that he was free, he wanted to find what the lamp had taken away. That was true love. So the king brought the genie back to his palace. The king was none other than Snow White's father and Regina's husband. Seeing that beautiful woman, the genie fell in love at first sight. On the king's birthday, he shared with everyone that Snow White was the most special gift he had, because every time he looked at his daughter, he remembered his dead wife. Hearing this, Regina's face changed. She left the party alone. This scene was seen by the genie. No matter how hard the queen tried, she could not win the king's love like he loved his first wife. She felt trapped in their memories. The genie understood the feeling of being imprisoned better than anyone. He gave the queen a mirror. Regina looked at herself shining in it and heard the genie's compliments. Her eyes sparkled. One day, the king called the genie and said that he suspected Regina had fallen in love with another man because Regina wrote in her diary that someone had given her a mirror. That thing had given her hope for love. The genie was very happy, but he didn't dare show it. The king called the genie here to find the person who made the queen change her mind. The king didn't say how to deal with that person. The genie continued to date the queen carelessly, until one day, Henry came to find the genie with a box. The king had locked the queen and wouldn't let him in. Henry wanted to ask the genie to give it to the queen on his behalf. The king trusted him and was sure that the king would let him in. This box was the only thing that could free the queen from this miserable life. After meeting her lover, the queen opened the box. Inside was the Araba viper that could kill a person with just one bite. The genie knew it very well because he was also from Araba. The queen apologized to the genie and made an appointment with him in the next life. When she was about to put her hand in the box, the genie stopped her because he had a reason. If the king died, the queen would not have to do such a foolish thing. The genie volunteered to do it for his love. That night, he released the Araba viper onto the king's bed. The genie confessed his sins to the king and hoped that the king would forgive him. Before he died, the king only said one thing: he should not have made that wish in the first place. The genie excitedly went to tell the queen the good news, but the queen gave him bad news. The guards had caught the snake, and they knew it came from the genie's homeland. They also knew that he was the culprit. Only then did the genie realize that he had been tricked. There were many kinds of snakes, but the queen had chosen the Araba viper. She had never loved the genie, but he was already in love with her. He could not get away from her anymore. The crazy, lovesick genie made his last wish that he would stay with the queen forever. He always wanted to see her and never leave her. The price of that wish was that the genie became a magic mirror. His blind love never faded, even though he lost his memory. That meant Sydney was just the person Regina planted next to Emma. He also broke the car brake. Now Regina would know everything about Emma without missing a single thing. But Henry's fairy tale book was not taken by Regina, but by that strange man. The ogre war was still going on. They were about to attack King Maurice's castle. In desperation, he sought out the evil power Rambo. King Maurice wanted to use gold in exchange for protection, but Rambo did not lack that. His condition was Belle, the king's daughter. She would be the housekeeper of his castle. Belle did not agree to anything. Her father and her fiancé Gaston strongly opposed. But to protect her family and the people here, Belle agreed to go with Rambo forever. Even though she was a housekeeper, Belle had to do everything in the castle. While serving her master, she accidentally chipped a cup. But Rambo did not blame Belle. She gradually adapted to life here and considered it her home. Belle did not hate Rambo, but she also talked very comfortably with him. One time, Belle accidentally fell down because she wanted to remove the curtain. Rambo did not hesitate to open his arms to catch her. A strange feeling suddenly arose between the two of them. A few months passed while Belle was cleaning, and she saw children's clothes. Since she would live here for the rest of her life, she wanted to know about Rambo's son, or at least about him. He thought she just wanted to know the monster's weakness. But to Belle, Rambo was just insecure about his appearance, because in her eyes, he was not a monster. At this time, Gaston came to make Rambo return Belle. But Gaston was immediately turned into a rose by Rambo. Rambo gave the flower to Belle. Belle said that the reason she agreed to Rambo's condition was because she wanted to be a hero. It was a chance for women like her to prove themselves to the world. Belle had a wish that she could see the big world outside, but she gave it up in exchange for the safety of the people. Love for Belle was a mystery that needed to be discovered, so she was not interested in marriage with Gaston. These words made Rambo's heart flutter. He proposed a deal with her. She would go to town to get him some hay. When she returned, he would tell her the story of his son. This meant that Rambo was giving Belle a chance to be free. On the way to town, Belle met Regina. Regina observed the two through the mirrors. She easily guessed Belle's thoughts. Belle admitted that she loved that man. Regina suggested a way to break the curse on Rambo. A kiss of true love will break all curses. Just one kiss will turn Rambo into a normal person. On the surface, Rambo waited for Belle to leave, but he couldn't help but look forward to that figure. He even pretended that he didn't care much. Belle knew someone was very happy. She kissed him. He immediately changed. She was happy because it worked. But Rambo's reaction was completely opposite. He angrily stood talking in front of the mirror. It was clear that Regina was playing tricks. She wanted to destroy Rambo's power. Belle wanted Rambo to admit the truth that she truly loved him, but he didn't want to hear that, even though he knew it better than anyone. He didn't dare believe that someone truly loved him. He said harsh words to Belle. After that, Belle was thrown into jail. Rambo took his anger out on the furniture, but when he touched touched Belle's chipped cup, he stopped. After thinking it through, Rambo chased Belle away, because he didn't need her anymore. Belle asked him with sadness and anger if only Rambo had opened his heart, he would have been happy, but he missed that chance. She said he was a coward, he didn't dare believe that she loved him, he chose power over her. She was sure that he would regret it for the rest of his life. Then all he had was an empty heart and a chipped cup. A long time later, Regina came to tell Rambo that Belle was convicted of conspiring with monsters and harming Gaston. Belle was locked in the tower and brutally tortured by King Maurice. Then she died. She was right. After all, he only had an empty heart and this chipped cup. This is why Mr. Gold always oppressed Mr. Maurice. In Storybook, in her grandmother's restaurant, Mary and Emma accidentally met Ashley again. She was busy taking care of her child. Shin had to work all day, so the two of them didn't have time to get married. Even today was Valentine's Day, but he couldn't be with her. Ruby then invited them to go out. Everyone agreed, only Emma didn't like parties, so she didn't join. At that time, she received a report and had to go to work. The neighbors saw that Mr. Gold's house was robbed, so they called the police. Mr. Gold wanted to handle it himself, but Emma didn't agree. She also wanted him to tell her what he knew to help the investigation. He suspected that the thief was Maurice, who had had a disagreement with him a few hours ago. Emma went to Maurice's house. She didn't catch him but found a lot of Mr. Gold's things. But there was one thing missing, so he decided to find the damn thief and the important item himself. That evening, the three girls went to the bar, but only Ruby was in the mood to have fun. The other two had busy boyfriends and the other had someone else's boyfriend. Mr. Gold found Maurice and took him to the cabin in the woods. He wanted to know two things. One was where the thing was. Second, who ordered Maurice to steal it. Maurice did not answer, making Mr. Gold lose all patience. Why did this person have her love? Maurice imprisoned her and made her die. Anger drove Mr. Gold crazy. He did not know anything anymore. Before anything bad happened, Emma appeared in time. Ashley was upset and was about to go home when Shin suddenly appeared with a bouquet of fresh flowers. He took advantage of his break to come here and propose to Ashley. She agreed to everyone's applause. Mary looked at the two of them, both happy and sad. At this time, David came outside the bar to find Mary and gave her a card. But David mistakenly gave the card he wrote to Catherine. It was time for Mary to rethink this relationship. Mr. Gold's act of imprisonment and assault forced Emma to put him in jail. The next morning, Mayor Regina went to the police station to meet Mr. Gold. She was holding what Mr. Gold needed, so it was too obvious. She was the one who told Maurice to steal. Regina's condition was Mr. Gold's real name. In return, Regina would return the item to him. No one expected that the chipped cup was Rambo's weakness. He was the most feared man in town. No one knew that there was a basement in the town hospital. Belle was locked in one of the cells. This was the time when Prince James was having a hard time escaping from King George's pursuit. When he thought he had escaped, he was caught by a group of strange soldiers. They were none other than Princess Abigail's men. Although King George tried his best to hide Prince James's escape, she still found out. Abigail knew that Prince James loved Snow White, and he didn't want to marry her. He would rather give up his life than be forced to marry someone he didn't love. However, Abigail wanted to help him escape because she also had someone she loved. Today at dinner, Catherine told David a piece of news. She applied to law school in Boston and was accepted. David didn't know whether to be happy or sad, so he asked Mary out to talk. Mary didn't want to lie to Catherine anymore. Catherine needed to know the truth about the relationship. David was hesitant, but he wanted to be with Mary, so he had to make a choice. He chose her. So what he had to do now was tell his wife everything. Emma went to her grandmother's restaurant and bumped into the mysterious man. He told her his name was August. August had promised to take Emma out after work. Mary had been waiting for Emma. She confessed that she and David were secretly dating. Emma wasn't surprised. Mary thought she was very discreet, but she forgot that Emma was the police chief. Emma noticed the new perfume, staying up late, and the deep neckline. How could Mary be discreet? When Emma first met Mary, she always wore clothes that covered her neck. Mary said it seemed like it was time for them to go public. While Catherine was looking at houses in Boston, David came and said that he would not go with her. However, he did not tell her the real reason. He just said that he could not pretend to love her. He wanted her to start with someone new. Abigail had taken Prince James out of King George's kingdom. He insisted on knowing the reason why the princess treated him so well. At this time, Abigail told him that she had lost the person she loved. If Prince James was reunited with Snow White, she would feel some comfort. Then Abigail took Prince James to a place. One time, Frederick protected King Midas and Princess Abigail, but he was accidentally touched by King Midas's hand and turned into gold. Abigail tried to use the kiss of true love to break the curse, but it was useless. Then she learned that there was a magic lake. The water in the lake could restore lost things. However, that place was guarded by a terrible thing. No one had ever faced it and survived. Hearing that, Prince James volunteered to go there to get water for Princess Abigail. If he succeeded, Abigail and Frederick would be reunited. If not, he would no longer have to suffer because of love. Catherine sadly went to Regina to confide. That's how she learned that Mary and David were having an affair. There were also photos as evidence, so everything was clear. Mary called to ask about the situation, and she knew that David had told her everything, so she was very happy. She even made an appointment to meet them after school. At this time, Catherine appeared in the school and slapped Mary in front of everyone. Through Catherine's words, Mary learned that David had lied. He had never mentioned their relationship to Catherine. Mary's story was widely discussed in town. Even Ruby's grandmother looked at Mary with disappointment. After work, August came to pick up Emma on time. He took her to an old well. Legend has it that the water in the well came from a magical lake. If Emma drank the water from the well, what she lost could come back to her. This person spoke like Henry. Emma didn't believe much in the legend, but she still drank this pure water. The thing guarding the magic lake was a mermaid. Prince James was very stubborn and never moved by a beautiful girl, until she turned into Snow White and seduced him. He loved Snow White, but she didn't love him. For a moment, Prince James was immersed in the feeling he had always longed for, but he quickly got rid of it. He felt that Snow White was not real at all. The mermaid couldn't seduce him, so she pushed him into the water. She was flirtatious and inviting, but the prince didn't like looking at the skeletons at the bottom of the lake. While he tried to swim to the surface, a tree grabbed his leg and pulled him to the bottom of the lake. Unfortunately for the mermaid, Prince James picked up a knife. In the end, he won and brought the magic water back to Princess Abigail. Mary went to find David. He didn't tell his wife everything because he didn't want anyone to be hurt, but in the end, he hurt everyone. No matter what David said, Mary didn't want to continue their story. She wanted to end it here. After the rain, Emma found a box containing Henry's book under the car. Could that legend be true? Catherine went to find Regina with a very relieved mood. She thought a lot. After the anger passed, she saw a lot of things. The way David looked at Mary with that passionate look she had never received before. Catherine decided to go to Boston and find someone who would look at her with that look. She wrote a letter to David and Mary. Catherine chose to forgive and let the two of them be together. These words made Regina extremely unhappy. She didn't expect Catherine to give up so easily. Catherine let Snow White be happy with the prince. She didn't want to see the two of them reunite. Prince James was very happy. He would go to find Snow White next. Abigail reminded Prince James to hurry. As soon as he learned that the connection between the two kingdoms was broken, King George would hunt him down. Many people would not care about anything to destroy the happiness of others. There was no house that Regina could not enter. She secretly entered David's house and took away Catherine's letter. Emma brought the book to Henry. He was very happy that things were getting better. Prince James came to find Snow White. Little Red Riding Hood said that Snow White had not come back since she received his letter. Snow White loved the prince very much. She left here to go to the wedding, so there was no way she did not love the prince, unless something made Snow White change her mind. Prince James realized that it was George and no one else. At this time, King George had arrived. Prince James and Little Red Riding Hood had to run away first. No one can leave Storybook Town, so it was no surprise when Catherine's car broke down at the town's landmark. A gym teacher saw her car, but she had disappeared. Pixie dust is the most precious thing in the world. Its magic is the energy of this world. Nova is a clumsy fairy. While transporting, she accidentally dropped some pixie dust. A dwarf's egg hatched earlier than expected, thanks to that pixie dust. The lucky person was none other than Tim. From that moment on, Tim's memory had the appearance of a beautiful girl. Dwarves do not love, do not marry, and do not have children. They are born to do only one thing: mine diamonds. So Tim was assigned to a team with 7 other dwarfs and began his mission. Pixie dust is actually crushed diamonds. While collecting pixie dust, Nova got into trouble and Tim came to her aid. He realized that she was the one he had seen in his dream long before he came out of the egg. Nova's dream was to become a fairy godmother, but she was so clumsy that she was afraid she would never achieve it. Tim didn't think so. He believed that Nova would become the best fairy godmother. Nova was very grateful and touched. She shyly told Tim that on the way home tonight she would go see the fireflies on the hill. For someone who had spent his whole life in the mine, Tim didn't know she was asking him out. He even wished her a good time. However, Nova was already very happy. From that day on, Tim was absent-minded. He didn't want to eat or play with the other dwarves. Bella overheard his mood. She explained that it was the feeling of love. Love was the most wonderful and magical thing in the world. Bale advised Tim to enjoy it, because love doesn't usually last forever. What Tim needed was to be with the person he loved. Tim felt confused. He said that Fairy didn't love him. She only talked about fireflies. Belle laughed when she heard that. She said that Nova was proposing to Tim. With Belle's encouragement, Tim went to the hill where Nova watched fireflies. One had a great responsibility. The other had spent his whole life in the mine. Both of them longed to see the big world outside. Tim suggested that they get on a boat and run away. Nova was so excited that she kissed Tim deeply. She promised him that tomorrow night they would leave at this place. The next day at the appointed time, Tim quietly left, but was discovered by Neil. When they learned that Tim had fallen in love with a girl and wanted to see the world with her, the 7 dwarves strongly supported him in pursuing his love. However, on the way, Tim was stopped by the mine manager and the blue fairy. The dwarves were responsible for mining diamonds to make fairy dust, and the fairy would become the future fairy godmother. If the two of them left, Nova would lose her wings. Their ending would go nowhere. The blue fairy gave Tim a choice. He would be selfish about his love or let Nova fulfill her dream. Nova excitedly showed off the boat she'd prepared for Tim. Everything was ready, but Tim didn't go. As a dwarf, he belonged to the mine. Nova belonged to the fairies. Each of them had a responsibility on their shoulders. They couldn't be together. Even though Tim said he didn't love her, he couldn't stop the tears from rolling down his cheeks. Tim returned to the 7 dwarfs, but he was no longer the same. From then on, Tim changed his name to Victor. In Storybook Town, Victor's name was Leroy. The people here hated Leroy. However, that position was replaced by Mary. The town was about to have a special holiday, Miners' Day. Mary went to her grandmother's restaurant to find volunteers to help the nuns sell candles on the holiday. But no one responded. Mary could only leave sadly. No matter how strong the curse is, it cannot stop the predestined fate of those in love. Leroy accidentally met nun Astrid and fell in love with her at first sight. Seeing Astrid so happy to be helped, Leroy felt his heart light as cotton. That innocent smile prompted him to sign up to volunteer as a candle seller. Astrid made a serious mistake. Because of a mistake, she spent all the center's budget on helium tanks. She would only get paid next month. Meanwhile, next week she had to pay rent to Mr. Gold. Her only source of income now was those candles. She had to sell thousands of them to have enough money. Leroy didn't want to see Astrid kicked out, so he firmly declared that he would sell all those candles to help her earn money. That day, Mary and Leroy didn't sell a single candle. They brought candles to every house, but no one wanted to buy them because they were the 2 most hated people in town. Mary urged Leroy to tell Astrid the truth, but looking at those sparkling eyes, Leroy did not dare to tell the truth. Mary angrily asked Leroy, and she knew that he liked Astrid. Leroy said that from now on, he would find a way by evening. Leroy sold the boat to Mr. Gold. Leroy did not take the money. He just asked Mr. Gold to let the nuns pay the rent 1 month late. Mr. Gold did not agree because he did not like those flying fairies. As soon as he left, Astrid went to the dock to give Leroy a cake to thank him. However, she discovered that her candles were still intact. Leroy had to confess that he had not sold anything. Astrid was very disappointed because Leroy had lied. At night, Leroy could not think of a way. He and Mary were sadly drinking at their grandmother's restaurant. While talking about life, Leroy had an idea, so he climbed up to the roof. Mary thought Leroy was going to jump. Leroy then slashed a power pole, causing a town-wide power outage. Now they had to buy candles, even if they didn't want to. Then the candles sold out. Leroy brought the money from the candle sales to Astrid. Wherever he was her hero. While everyone was enjoying this special occasion, Emma was still busy investigating Catherine's mysterious disappearance. No one was found at the accident scene. The belongings were still in the car. Emma felt that this was not simple, so she asked Sydney to get her Catherine's call list. Unexpectedly, Regina changed the list. This made all suspicions fall on Catherine's husband. Emma talked to David. With her ability, she was sure that David was not lying, but the evidence proved that David was related to Catherine's disappearance. Regina came to Emma to urge her to find Catherine quickly. At the same time, Regina warned that if she covered up or delayed, she should be prepared to be kicked out of the police station. Emma was not sure of anything, but she had to take David to the police station, in front of the villagers. And Mary, Little Red Riding Hood, was a girl who lived with her grandmother in a wooden house in the forest. She had a close friend and boyfriend named Peter. The two of them intended to run away together because her grandmother did not allow her and Peter to date. There were 2 wolf seasons every year. Last night the wolf entered the village and attacked the livestock, so today the villagers organized a hunting trip. She was excited to go with them, but her grandmother refused to let her go anywhere. As usual on these days, they would stay at the house and wait for morning. The next day, Little Red Riding Hood went to the chicken farm to collect eggs, and she met Snow White. It was so cold last night that she came here to stay for the night. Because she was wanted, Snow White could not say her real name. She called herself Mary. Little Red Riding Hood was very enthusiastic to keep Mary. When the two of them went to the well to get water, Snow White was shocked by the tragic scene. There, the wolf took down the villagers who were hunting it last night. The villagers were going to organize another hunt, but Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother stopped them. 60 years ago, when she still had her father and 6 brothers, they were all veterans who had returned from the Great War against the ogre. Among them, her father was the bravest. Yet during the wolf season, when they joined forces to destroy the monster, it did not lose a single hair. Then all 7 of them died right in front of her. It gnawed her arm and threw her away. This scar is proof of that. They could not defeat it, but could only stay at home and protect their children as much as possible. Snow White looked at Little Red Riding Hood and knew that she was in love. She shyly admitted that she wanted to run away with her lover, but her grandmother would not let her go anywhere alone because she was afraid of the wolves. A crazy idea popped into her head. She wanted to kill the wolf. It was daytime, so she would have the advantage because it was sleeping. Little Red Riding Hood finished speaking and immediately left. She didn't care if Snow White came with her. She didn't want to stay in her grandmother's cage anymore. They quickly found dog-like footprints, but they were bigger than dogs and had claws. The two of them followed that direction and found that the dog's footprints had changed to shoe prints. They had completely turned into human footprints. They didn't expect it to be a werewolf. That thing was much scarier than a wolf. What was even more terrifying was that the footprints were going towards Little Red Riding Hood's window. Peter had come here last night. She was shocked. It seemed that when he transformed into a wolf, he didn't remember who he was, so he killed those people. Snow White advised her to go tell Peter. Otherwise, either he or the hunting party would die tonight. So Little Red Riding Hood went to find her lover and told him about this. Peter didn't expect that he was the monster that everyone was hunting. The two of them decided to tie Peter up with chains. He also showed Little Red Riding Hood how to tie him up so that when he transformed, he could not escape and hurt her. She loved Peter, so she was not afraid of him because he was a werewolf. She also wanted to accompany him on other full moon nights. Snow White pretended to be Little Red Riding Hood, but she was quickly discovered by her grandmother. She knew her granddaughter was with Peter, so she was very angry. Snow White had to tell her that Peter was a werewolf and that he was tied up by Little Red Riding Hood. But things were not as everyone thought, because Little Red Riding Hood was really a werewolf. On the way there, her grandmother told Snow White the truth. The wolf that year killed her father and brother and transformed her. Then Little Red Riding Hood's mother. Then Little Red Riding Hood also became a werewolf. Red Riding Hood was enchanted to prevent her from transforming, but she still did not like wearing it. She did not tell her granddaughter because it was too horrible for her. Although she had lost all her abilities, the grandmother could still smell the girl. She took out a silver arrow, ready to shoot her at any moment. The girl was devouring Peter when the two arrived. After shooting her, they quickly covered her with a scarf to turn her back into a human. They did not want her to see the tragedy behind her, but they could not. Little Red Riding Hood collapsed when she learned that she was a wolf and had killed her lover with her own hands. Back in Storybook, Emma took David to the police station, but it was clear that he did not show any signs of lying. She asked more, but that was all. Emma let him go, but at the same time, she advised him to find himself a lawyer. Ruby was very interested in the world outside Storybook. She was fascinated to hear August recount his experiences in the places he had been. No matter what world it was, Ruby was still like a bird in a cage. Even her grandmother controlled her from talking too long with men. They had a fight, and Ruby quit her job. Mary and Emma were talking about David when they saw Ruby waiting for a bus by the roadside. She didn't know where she was going, but she just needed to go far away. When Mary heard about Ruby's situation, she asked Ruby to come stay at her house for a while. Mary went into the woods to try to find Catherine, but she found David wandering around. He couldn't hear what Mary said. He just walked around as if he was looking for something. Ruby was unemployed, so Henry found her a job. None of them suited Ruby. Luckily, she was suitable to be Emma's assistant, so Ruby had something to do for the time being. At this point, Mary was confused and went to find Emma and told her what had happened. Ruby proudly bragged to her grandmother about her new job at the police station, but her grandmother's indifferent reaction made her very sad. Henry advised Emma to give Ruby more work. She was Little Red Riding Hood. She just couldn't remember what she was capable of. Ruby returned and was taken by Emma into the woods to find David. Ruby could not understand why she could hear David's breathing. She found him lying motionless on a rock. David woke up in a daze, and he did not understand why he was here. His memory only stopped last night when he was at the police station with Emma. Dr. Will examined David and found that he only had minor skin injuries. As for the reason he did not remember why he appeared in the woods, David might have been sleepwalking. Hearing that, David doubted himself. Maybe he called Catherine in his sleep and did something to her. Emma immediately called Ruby and wanted her to go to the broken bridge and see if he had been there. When Ruby arrived, she saw a plank. Looking at the loose soil, it seemed like someone had just buried something here. She found a box, and the thing inside made her scream in fear. After what just happened, Ruby realized something. The next day she went to her grandmother's restaurant and asked for the job back. Ruby honestly told her grandmother that she wanted to be like her grandmother, but she didn't have the confidence. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to take over this place and disappoint her grandmother. After working as an assistant for a few days, she realized that she was still more suited to working at the restaurant, a job that made her happy every morning when she woke up. Emma came to tell David and Mary the news. In the box that Ruby found, there was a human heart. She thought it belonged to Catherine. Another news was that a fingerprint was found inside the box. David voluntarily surrendered his hands, but the fingerprint belonged to Mary. Now Catherine's disappearance case has turned into a murder case. Mary became the #1 suspect. When interrogating Mary, Emma asked her about the box containing the heart. Mary said it was her jewelry box. That explained why there was her fingerprint on it. She was very upset because it was obvious that someone had stolen the box and framed her. Regina manipulated Mary's mind and wanted her to doubt herself. But Mary did not change her mind so easily. She insisted that she was a good person. Even though she was embarrassed in front of everyone, her personality did not change. Emma returned to check the house for signs of a break-in. Unfortunately, there was nothing unusual. She even found the murder weapon under the vent. Mary could not even remember where the hole was in her house. The evidence was growing, so Emma advised Mary to find a lawyer, but before Mary could find one, Mr. Gold came to the police station and volunteered to be her lawyer. Although Miss Gold had a problem with his personality, Mary did not care. She wanted to take every opportunity she had. Mr. Gold would not take any money. Just think of it as him investing in her future. Meanwhile, David went to find Dr. Archie and asked him to hypnotize her. David hoped that the forgotten memories would help Mary. Prince James and Little Red Riding Hood were still being pursued by King George. At this rate, he wouldn't be able to find Snow White, so Little Red Riding Hood stayed behind to stop King George so that Prince James could have a chance to find someone. Since Snow White drank Rambo's water, she became very mean. Everyone tried to persuade her, but to no avail. So the 7 dwarfs invited Jiminy Cricket to give Snow White psychological therapy. She became irritable, selfish, and rude to everyone. She was so violent that the happy dwarf wanted to change her name to Sad. The water made Snow White forget the prince, and also made her forget herself. Hearing this, Snow White became even more angry. The more she spoke, the more she expressed her feelings. The one who made her live with the dwarfs instead of in the castle. She lost the person who loved her and was hunted everywhere. It was all Regina's fault. Jiminy tried to explain that if she took revenge, she would destroy herself. But Snow White found her purpose in life. Despite everyone's objections, she still took the water and set out on her journey, determined to take revenge on Regina. So Snow White stopped a knight and forced him to tell her where Regina was. was. She also stole his armor and horse. Victor couldn't stand to see Snow White like this, so he convinced her to go see Rambo with him. Rambo took away her memories of the prince, so the only one who could return them was him. Prince James accidentally met the knight who was robbed by Snow White. Surprisingly, the one who caused this was not Regina but Princess Snow White. The prince didn't believe that Snow White was that kind of person. It was natural that Rambo's potion changed Snow White. It took away love and left a big hole in her heart. There was no medicine that could bring true love back. Love is the most powerful magic, the only thing he hadn't collected yet. If Snow White got it, she would be able to do anything. What Snow White wanted now was to kill Regina, not that memory. So Rambo gave her a bow and arrows, and a place where she would shoot the arrows. Victor didn't expect things to come to this. If Snow White decided to do this, he wouldn't help her. Unfortunately, Snow White lost control. But this time, Rambo didn't take anything from her. Just consider it an investment in her future. Prince James came to Rambo to ask about Snow White. When Rambo suggested it, he knew that just a kiss of true love would help her return to the way she was before. But how could he kiss when he didn't know where Snow White was? So Prince James made a deal with Rambo. Rambo gave him Snow White's location. In return, Rambo only took his cloak. He had to act quickly because if Snow White got her revenge, she would become the second Regina. Snow White was about to leave when she was stopped by Prince James. He kissed her deeply but nothing happened. He was even punched by her until he fainted on the spot. The prince woke up and found himself tied to a tree. Snow White also guessed that he was the person she had chosen to forget. He tried to convince her not to kill Regina, because that was not who she was, but she did not change her mind and turned the sun away. David was searching his memories under Archie's guidance. Unexpectedly, images from the fairy tale world appeared in his head. He was not rational enough to realize the difference. He only remembered that he had advised Mary not to kill someone, but she still wanted to do it. So David mistakenly thought that Mary was the real culprit. Not long after, Snow White left. Jiminy came to rescue the prince. Jiminy also reminded him that how could Snow White remember him when she did not even know who she was. Snow White went to the position that Rambo had brought to ambush the queen. As soon as the arrow was shot, Prince James rushed out to catch it. He would rather die than let Snow White be engulfed in darkness. Someone was willing to die for Snow White. No one had ever done that to her. These words moved Snow White. She took the initiative to kiss the prince, and her memory of him returned. However, at this moment, King George came and took the prince away. The two were separated again. This time, it was her turn to look for him. Snow White returned and apologized to the dwarfs for what she had done in the past. Everyone forgave her. They knew this was the real Snow White. She couldn't stay long because she had to rescue the prince, but this time she wouldn't do it alone. She couldn't fight the queen, but she and the 7 dwarfs could fight King George. David went to Sam's house to find Mary and told her about that memory. The right time but the wrong person caused this love to come to a dead end. David doubted Mary. This made her extremely disappointed. When everyone doubted David, she still trusted him absolutely. And now she had to suffer like this. Mary couldn't calmly face David anymore. The next day, she accidentally picked up a skeleton key. Mary tried to open the cell door. Unexpectedly, it opened. At this time, Emma came to inform that the heart test results showed that it was really Catherine's. However, she was sure that Regina was setting Mary up because Henry found a bunch of keys in Regina's office. In the book, it said it could open any door. The boy had proven that Regina had made this up. Emma reassured Mary that she would find a way to prove Mary's innocence. Mary just had to wait patiently for Emma. However, she knew who she had been harmed by and didn't get angry. Mary would wait for Emma to rescue her. Rambo had combined the hair from the prince's cloak with Snow White's hair. He had finally collected love. He had completed his collection. Emma and Mr. Gold arrived at the prison and found that Mary had disappeared. She had escaped. There was a trial tomorrow. If she wasn't there then, whether she was convicted of Catherine's case or not, she would die. Emma was wandering around looking for Mary when she accidentally knocked a man down. She offered to take him home to make amends. Edward was alone in the huge mansion. After entering the house, he invited Emma to have tea. She quickly felt dizzy. Edward's gait was no longer limping. Emma woke up and quickly untied her. The telescope in the room pointed towards the police station. This person had been following her, just didn't know since when. Emma carefully opened the door. She saw him, sharpening scissors, so she sneaked to another room. Unexpectedly, he also took Mary. The two were about to leave when they were discovered. Edward forced Emma to tie Mary up because he still had something for her to do. Unlike most of the people here, Edward still remembered who he was. For 28 years he was trapped in this house, until one day, Emma came to town in her yellow beetle. The clock started to tick and the place began to change. He believed that she had brought magic to Storybook Town. He wanted her to make this hat work. Only she could do it. She had to. Edward was a hatter. He had a beautiful daughter named Grace. One day the evil queen came to Edward and wanted him to open the gate to Wonderland. She wanted to get back something that the people there had stolen from her. In return, Edward and his father would change their lives and not need help making a living like now. Everett flatly refused because the last time he did that, Grace had lost her mother. Grace loved this rabbit very much, but Edward spent all his money, but he still couldn't buy it. His daughter understood and gave up, making him very heartbroken. This was the queen's plan and she succeeded. Edward's family was so poor that they didn't even have tea to drink. In order for his daughter not to suffer anymore, he sent her to the neighbors. Then he brought the hat to see Regina. With her promise, he activated the hat. The two of them jumped into the portal to Wonderland at the same time. They came to a row of doors. Before stepping through the transparent door, Edward reminded them that as many people went, so many would return. That was the rule of the hat. On the other side of the door was a vast sky. They were as small as midgets. There was grass taller than their heads, and a dragon smoking a pipe, which was very interesting. The two of them stood before Queen Zanella's maze. If they rushed in, it meant they were challenging her. This was not in the contract, but Edward could not refuse. He could not leave Wonderland without Regina. To finish the job quickly, she opened a path straight to Queen Zanella's storage room. When they tried to return, they were chased by the Queen's soldiers. They lost them and returned to the door. Regina picked a piece of Wonderland food and put it in the box. It turned out that Queen Zanella had captured Mr. Henry. The rule of the hat is that as many people go, so many people return. She tricked Edward so he couldn't leave the fairyland. He was caught by Queen Zanella. She wanted to know how he came to this world. He made a condition but was not satisfied and even had his head cut off. If he wanted to put his head back on, he had to tell the truth. So he didn't hide it anymore. He said he came here with a hat. It just naturally opened the gate. There was no magic. That hat was taken by Regina. If Zanella wanted to make another one, it would be almost impossible. Zanella didn't care about that and said that if Edward wanted to return to his world, he had to make a second one. From then on, Edward went crazy making hats. That's where the name Crazy Hat came from. Because he was imprisoned in the fairyland, his memory was still intact. Emma was forced to make hats to the point that she went crazy. Of course, none of them worked. She still had to bring Mary back, so Emma started to change the subject. She tried to convince Edward, although he kept his memories, he was no better than the others. The curse also took away what he loved. First it was Grace, now it was Pay. In this world, she had become the child of the two neighbors. Pay was imprisoned in this vast place every day. Edward saw his child happy with his new family, but he could not find her and tell her the truth. This made Edward very sad. Emma was touched by his father-daughter relationship. When Edward was about to let Emma continue making hats, she hit him on the head with a telescope. Emma was untying Mary when she was attacked by Edward. The two struggled back and forth. Mary took the opportunity to push him out the window. He fell down the stairs with the hat. When they looked down, he was gone. Emma decided to give Mary the key. If she wanted to escape, that was fine. Emma did not stop Mary. No matter what, Emma will prove Mary innocent. She has been completely alone all her life, with no one by her side except Mary. Emma sees Mary as family. She will do anything to protect her family. Hearing this, Mary changes her mind. She chooses to return to Emma. Regina happily goes to the police station, but she is disappointed when she sees Mary sitting in jail. Mr. Gold says that Mary's return is not part of the deal, but he assures Regina that Mary will still get the ending she wants. Miss Gold came to Regina a week ago and offered a deal. She will deal with his abuse. In exchange, he will deal with Mary, starting with a tragedy happening to Catherine, then Mary being blamed, then putting the key in the cell. Finally, Mary will get into trouble when she tries to leave Storybook. Mr. Gold is Mary's lawyer. Just to make sure everything goes according to plan, Regina goes to jail to anger Mary. Mr. Gold came to persuade her to meet the prosecutor. He wanted to use her character to convince the judge that she was an elementary school teacher. She had weak legs, so she couldn't be the culprit. At this time, Sidney came to give Emma a flower pot. She asked him to search Regina's place, but he couldn't find anything useful. After Mary thought about it, she agreed to meet the prosecutor. However, his way of speaking was extremely oppressive and provocative. It made Mary have no motivation to act. Mary didn't have any bad thoughts, but she had to say those words to vent her anger. After Mary finished speaking, she realized that she was being tricked. Regina was quite satisfied with Mary's expression. Mary was extremely depressed. She couldn't understand why she was being targeted. She begged for forgiveness if she had made Regina unhappy, but in return, all she got was Regina's smug smile. Why did Regina insist on forcing Mary to the end? When Regina was a lady, her personality was much different than now. Regina was a very strong and kind person. However, Regina's mother did not like her daughter like that. She criticized Regina for being too masculine. Regina was not graceful and feminine, so no one wanted to marry her. Regina refused to listen to her mother's teachings. Her mother used magic to control her rebellious personality. Actually, Regina already had someone she loved. That was Daniel, her family's horse groom. Many times Daniel wanted Regina to tell her parents about the two of them, but she always delayed. Because she knew her mother would never agree to this marriage, Daniel was not afraid of Regina's mother's magic. He was confident that their sincerity would convince her. At this time, there was a little girl having trouble with a horse. Regina chased after her to save her. That little girl was Snow White. Today, the family had a guest, Snow White's king. He came to repay Regina for saving her life. At the same time, the king also proposed to Regina. Her mother saw that she did not respond, so her mother agreed for her. That night, Regina came to tell Daniel this bad news. The two decided to elope. Regina would rather have a simple life with Daniel than be a queen. Even so, Daniel did not want to be too careless. He prepared a ring to propose to Regina. The two exchanged a passionate kiss. This scene was seen by Snow White. Regina hurriedly chased Snow White and explained that she did not love Snow White's father. The person Regina loved was the horse herder. True love is a miracle that creates happiness. She loved him very much and was willing to sacrifice everything. Snow White admired Regina's love so much that she promised to keep this a secret. Regina's mother saw the closeness between Snow White and her daughter, so she tried to probe Snow White to see if Regina was hiding anything. As a child whose mother died early, Snow White was very sympathetic. Snow White admired Regina's mother-daughter relationship and told her that Regina loved the horse herder. She just wanted Regina's mother to matchmake the two of them and make everyone happy. That night, Regina and Daniel were about to escape when they were stopped. She controlled Regina. She wanted her daughter to live the life she had planned. However, Regina and Daniel were very stubborn. No matter what she said, she could not separate the two of them. At this time, her voice softened. Snow White did not stop her. Regina and Daniel were very happy when they let down their guard. Regina's mother coldly crushed Daniel's heart. She turned it into dust. Snow White still did not know that she had indirectly killed Regina's love. The moment Regina knew the truth, she was determined to spend her whole life destroying Snow White. She also realized that her mother was the one who had arranged everything. Emma was stuck because of Mary's case when August suggested it to her. So the two of them went to the broken bridge to look for clues. Unexpectedly, they found a piece of the shovel. If they found the chipped shovel, they could prove Mary's innocence. Mary didn't bury her heart. Emma was pretty sure who owned the shovel. That night, Emma and August used the key Henry had hidden under the carpet to get into Regina's garage. Sure enough, they found the chipped shovel. It matched the piece they found perfectly. The next day, Emma brought a search warrant to search Regina's garage, but she was one step ahead. The shovel was gone. Emma was furious and thought August had betrayed her. Mary was taken away. Emma asked Mr. Gold, but all he said was that this wasn't over yet. Let him do some magic first. Emma didn't understand. She angrily knocked over the flower pot on the table. That's how she found out Sydney had bugged her. She rushed to find August to apologize for doubting him. Suddenly, there was a loud scream. Ruby pointed fearfully toward the alley behind. It was Catherine. She was still alive. To prove to Emma about the town's curse, Henry did as August said. While Henry distracted Mr. Gold, August sneaked into his office and searched for something. August was discovered by Mr. Gold, but he calmly said that he was on the wrong path. He left the store. This made Mr. Gold pay attention to August. Catherine didn't remember much. She only remembered that the airbag deployed and then she woke up in a basement. There was food and water available. Then she found the exit and started looking for a way back. Catherine learned that while she was missing, someone took advantage of her to frame Mary. Catherine was very surprised. Regina blamed Mr. Gold for breaking the contract. Catherine was supposed to die, and Mary was blamed. She must have heard wrong. He only said he was going to create a tragedy, not kill her. Regina didn't understand what he would gain by doing that. Obviously, Mr. Gold would present the other evidence as fake and drag them down, but he only replied with one sentence that made Regina angry. Since becoming the Dark Knight, Rambo has become extremely cold cold-blooded. No child dares to play with Jafar. Rambo doesn't care what happens. As long as Jafar is injured, he is willing to kill that person. The boy always finds a way to push this evil power away. This will make Rambo return to the way he was before. One way is to use a knife carved with Rambo's name and stab him in the heart. Of course, Jafar will not do that. At this moment, the maid enters. Rambo does not want to give up his power because he is not confident that he can protect his son, but under his son's persuasion, he agreed to a contract. That is, as long as the boy finds a way, he will do as he says. This is Rambo's first contract, and also the only contract he broke. Jafar followed his father into the forest. No one dared to play with him except Maureen. Listening to him confide, Maureen remembered Ryugam. The primal power that rules the night is stronger than anything else. Maybe it will help Jafar. At this time, Rambo returned after dealing with the maid. He could not let others know about the knife. Jafar was very upset. He had to remove this power from his father. That night, Jafar went into the forest and tried to call Ryugam's name, but the blue fairy appeared. She could not turn Rambo back to the way he was, but she could take him to a place where magic did not exist. That was the only way. As long as he could get his father back, Jafar would give up everything to leave with his father. Rambo was filled with darkness, but his love for his son kept a part of his humanity. The blue fairy gave Jafar the only magic being left in this world. Jafar returned excitedly and told his father about it. Although Rambo did not want to, he had promised his son, so he could only follow his son into the forest. The magic bean just touched the ground and created a big hole. Rambo was terrified. He didn't want to lose this power. Although Jafar begged Rambo not to break the contract, he ultimately chose to protect his power. When Jafar disappeared with the hole, Rambo came to his senses, but it was too late. Rambo went to the blue fairy. The blue fairy said there were no more magic beans. There was no way to get to that world except by curse. The price to pay was the entire fairy world. But Rambo didn't care. As long as he could see his son again, he would pay any price. He succeeded. The only thing was that he still hadn't met his son. Mary was cleared, so everyone held a small party to welcome her back. David came to find Mary, but he was refused to meet her. She didn't want to see him right now. At the party, Mr. Gold asked Emma about August. Unfortunately, her information wasn't much better than his. That night, Mr. Gold broke into August's room. He saw a drawing of another knife named Rambo. Only one person knew it. He started following August with suspicion. Emma went to Sydney to advise him to back off, but Sydney loved Regina, so no matter what, he wouldn't leave Regina. August went to a nun for advice. After a long time apart, he came to this town to find his father. He was about to find his father. This made Mr. Gold even more convinced of his suspicions. He went to the cabin in the woods and saw August there. August called Mr. Gold his father. Here, Mr. Gold sincerely apologized to his son who had been separated for so long. The two reunited in tears. August forgave his father. Knowing that his son was looking for the knife, he led his son to the place where he buried it. He didn't need it anymore. One mistake was enough. This time he chose his son, but August suddenly took it and cast a spell to control the Dark Knight. But nothing magical happened. Mr. Gold also recognized and asked August who he was. This was not his son Jafar, because Jafar was the one who knew better than anyone that there was no magic in this world. No one remembered the fairy tale world, but August knew about the knife. This meant that he was also one of the fairy tale characters. August said that a fairy had told him about this. Mr. Gold threatened, but August was not afraid, because he was seriously ill and would die anyway. He just wanted to find some magic to change the situation. Seeing that Mr. Gold spared August, because Jafar would die anyway, Mr. Gold did not need to do anything. They thought they could take down Regina this time, but Sydney stood up and took all the blame on him. Since kidnapping Catherine and bribing the doctor to fake the DNA results, he also forged false evidence. Emma angrily said that the person in charge of the game would win no matter what, so she would play another game and just wait. Emma decides to hire Mr. Gold to sue Regina for trying to frame Mary. She hopes it will help her get Henry back. August feels that Emma's guardianship battle will be fruitless. He has a better way to defeat Regina. Emma just needs to take a day off and follow August somewhere. He will prove it to her, but she refuses. She believes in herself more. Henry calls Emma to the diner. He finds out that someone has changed his fairy tale book. That person has continued Pinocchio's story. Geppetto and Pinocchio encounter a big storm at sea. They only have one lifebuoy. At the moment of danger, Pinocchio gives it to his father. When Pinocchio's father wakes up, he is no longer moved by his brave act. The blue fairy gives Pinocchio Pinocchio a miracle. She turns the wooden boy into a real person. As long as Pinocchio is brave, honest and unselfish, he will keep his human form. August is that boy, but it seems he disobeyed the Blue Fairy's orders. Mary returned to school. However, her attitude was extremely gentle, and she did not hate Regina at all. Even though Regina was the one who tried to frame her, she forgave and sympathized with the mayor. How lonely must Regina be to feel happy when destroying other people's happiness? How pitiful. Regina was extremely angry. She wanted to change classes, but Henry strongly objected. Snow White would still return to Prince David. The curse would end and good would prevail. Henry would not change classes. August dragged his stiff legs to the pawn shop. August wanted Mr. Gold to refuse Emma's case and direct her to him. Because August had to make Emma believe in this place and in the curse, he did not have much time left. One day, the Blue Fairy brought bad news to Geppetto and Pinocchio. Regina was about to cast a black curse on the entire kingdom. She separated everyone from the people they loved. There was only one way to save everything. The savior growing inside Snow White, the child, will come back to save everyone when he turns 28, but he must be protected from the black curse. The Blue Fairy needs Geppetto to make the magic tree into a cupboard. It will protect the child from the spell. Geppetto doesn't want to lose Pinocchio, so he agrees that Emma should go to Mr. Gold. He makes things worse. Then he says he won't take the case. Emma has to go back to August, so he takes her out of town. While she's trying to win Henry, Regina has another little plan. Regina pretends to have a car breakdown so David can take her home. Then she acts lonely and needs someone to talk to keep him. The Blue Fairy takes Geppetto and his father to the magic tree, but when Geppetto learns that it can only protect two people, he reconsiders. The two chosen are Snow White and Prince David, but to Pinocchio, he is not completely human. He was worried that when the curse took effect, the boy would turn back into wood. He couldn't let that happen. Geppetto had a condition. He would close the cupboard, but Pinocchio had to have a ticket. Jiminy tried to stop him. However, Geppetto was very determined. Snow White could raise her child without a husband, but what if Pinocchio turned into wood forever? Either Pinocchio could go, or no one would go. So at the meeting of the fairy tale characters, the Blue Fairy said that the cupboard could only protect one person. David had a delicious evening at Regina's house. She started talking about the day she found David, and the strange feeling and special care that the couple had, as if it was fate. She even rushed forward to kiss him, but he was still very conscious. He even gently reminded her to know when to stop. Henry's words rang in Regina's ears, making her feel extremely humiliated. The curse was coming, so the Blue Fairy needed to return to the fairyland to prepare. Before leaving, the Blue Fairy asked Geppetto to put Snow White and her child in the cupboard, because someone must guide the savior. That will make her believe in her mission. Otherwise, everyone will be imprisoned forever. Geppetto did not dare to take risks, so he still let Pinocchio go. He can take care of her child instead of Snow White. Geppetto told Pinocchio to remember to protect the savior and make sure she believes in the curse. Only then can the two of them reunite. Another important thing is that the new world will have many temptations. As long as Pinocchio is brave, honest, and unselfish, he will not fall. Then Pinocchio entered the cupboard and disappeared. August took Emma to a restaurant. There was an article about her saying that a 7-year-old boy picked up IMM there. That boy was August. Pinocchio came to the modern world through a tree. He was scared and wanted to go back but could not. His father's words came to mind and helped him calm down. Very soon a baby appeared in the tree hole. August was leading Emma to the tree. He introduced himself as Pinocchio. Emma had only one thought, that this guy was insane. She would never believe in that book. August chased Emma, but halfway through, his illness made him collapse. At 8:15 am, while traveling in Phuket, he woke up with terrible pain in his leg. It was 8:15 p.m. in this town. The moment the clock started again, the moment Emma decided to stay in this town, August should have been here, but he was halfway around the world. Then he showed her his legs that were slowly turning into wood. She couldn't see the truth because her rejection was too strong. August was helpless because he and everyone here was counting on her. Emma didn't want to take on that huge responsibility. She hadn't even finished taking Henry, so how could she save the whole town? She is not a hero, she just wants to be a mother. Pinocchio and Emma were sent to an orphanage. The people there did not treat the children very well. The older children ran away together. They took Pinocchio and he left too. They left little Emma behind. Pinocchio had forgotten the Blue Fairy's words. August went to Mr. Gold's repair shop and asked to be his assistant. There was no time to change Emma. He would spend the few days he had left with his father. That night, Emma called Henry and took him out of town. When their car reached the town border, Henry turned the car to the side of the road. What would happen to him and his grandparents if Emma left? The boy tried his best to convince his mother to change her mind. Prince David was punished by King George. At the crucial moment, Regina came and made a deal with him. She wanted to use Prince David to destroy Snow White's true love. The apple tree was dying, which meant the curse was weakening. It was all Emma's fault. However, Regina failed to kill Emma. She did that to break Mr. Gold's curse. Regina couldn't do anything because magic in this place was quite scarce and was running out every minute. He advised Regina to accept her fate. She should think about where to go after the curse was lifted, but she couldn't give up so easily. There had to be a way to kill Emma without affecting the curse. So Regina sent a message to Edward. Snow White's group was at the edge of the forest watching King George's castle. Little Red Riding Hood went to investigate and found out that the prince was still alive. But the queen was also here. It was obviously a trap, but Snow White couldn't help but go. Everyone was determined to go with her to save people. Snow White received Little Red Riding Hood's signal, so she led the 7 dwarfs and her grandmother to rush up the wall. With the help of the fairies, they successfully helped Snow White get into the prison to find the prince. But there was no prince left. Only a mirror remained. Regina wanted to end this long fight. The two of them would talk clearly where it all started. Of course, she was alone and unarmed. Everyone was very worried, but Snow White had to go on this trip. Seeing her determined to leave, Little Red Riding Hood suddenly had a bad feeling. Regina took out Edward's hat and wanted to make a deal with him. She needed to go back to the fairy tale world to get something. Regina wanted the hat to work. It needed magic. Luckily, Regina had kept enough to use in return. Regina would wake Grace up so she would remember who she was. But Edward didn't want her to be tormented by 2 lives like him. He wanted to forget everything. Regina would write a new story for his life. She would do that after dealing with Emma. Henry went to ask August for help. Henry was extremely excited when he learned that August was Pinocchio. August couldn't do anything anymore because his hands had turned to wood. Very soon he wouldn't be able to breathe anymore. He was ashamed, but he had no choice but to give up. Regina led Edward to a basement where she kept the last bit of magic. The hat did not change anything because the magic was too little. It was not powerful enough to open the gate. The only thing left with a spell was Daniel's engagement ring, but she could not give up now. Regina had to sacrifice it. Then the hat worked. However, it only opened a small space enough to reach through the fairy world and take the item. Luckily, what Regina wanted was only a fist. Edward led Snow White to Daniel's grave. That year, she lied that Daniel ran away because he did not want Snow White to be sad. But it was clear that Snow White was the reason for his misfortune. Then she took out an apple and said it did not kill anyone. It only made Snow White sink into regretful dreams and turned her body into a tomb to hold her soul. Now either Snow White voluntarily ate it or Prince David would die. Regina felt herself victorious the moment Snow White ate it. The prince's heart suddenly ached. He knew something was wrong with her. That bitten apple was what Regina wanted. Little Red Riding Hood, her aunt, and the 7 dwarfs found Snow White, but she was no longer breathing. Returning, Regina made a delicious apple pie. Emma came to see her. After Emma asked Archie for advice, she came to propose ending the guardianship war. Emma would leave, but she would visit Henry from time to time. She just hoped Regina wouldn't stop her. Would be perfect for both sides. To show that her grandmother had also forgotten everything and had thought it through, Regina gave Emma an apple pie to eat on the way. She went to show off to Mr. Gold. He just reminded Regina that all magic has its price. When Emma went home to pack her things, Henry came to find her. He tried to make his mother stay, but in vain. Emma was very determined. Henry discovered the cake, and the boy immediately realized Regina's evil plot. Henry said it was poisonous, but Emma didn't believe it. To prove the curse was real, Henry ate it. The boy collapsed before her horror. He was taken to the emergency room. Emma insisted that Henry was poisoned. Dr. Will was angry at her attitude, because whatever was happening, this was not the cause. The boy had no symptoms of poisoning. Emma thought about what the boy had said and her determination wavered. When Emma began to believe in the curse, the fog that covered the truth gradually cleared. At this time, Regina came to the hospital. Emma angrily asked Regina. She admitted that the fantasies Henry said all existed. The last spell she used to get the apple, it no longer had any magic to save Henry. However, there was still someone who knew magic, Mr. Gold, who was also Rambo. From now on, Prince David had no more value. Regina ordered him to be beheaded. On the way, the prince rebelled. The hunter helped him escape from the castle. Knowing that he had escaped, Regina used magic to send the prince to the endless forest. The prince was confused when Rambo appeared. He stole the prince's mother's ring and enchanted it. The charm on it could help the prince find Snow White. Of course, there had to be a deal. At first, the prince refused, but he couldn't beat that cunning devil, so he had to do as he was asked to get the ring back. David came to find Mary. He thought a lot about her, about himself, and about everything. He didn't understand why they became like this. Catherine had an apartment in Boston. She didn't use it, but he did. David hoped that Mary would keep him, but she refused. Rambo gave the prince the potion of true love. This was the most powerful magic, the only thing that could destroy any curse. It was kept in an egg. The prince's job was to put it in the beast's belly. That's how he kept his trump card. Regina and Emma went to Mr. Gold for help. He gave Emma her father's sword. What she had to do was to get his true love back. That medicine could save Henry. The only one who could do that was Emma, because she was a magical creature. Regina went to visit Henry. Edward came to remind Regina of their agreement, but she changed her mind, because Emma didn't eat the apple. Emma went to August for help, but he was about to die. Because she believed in the curse, she could see his arm that had turned into wood. However, Emma felt it was too much for her. She was just a normal person. August wanted to, but he could only comfort her before he turned completely into wood. That night, Regina took Emma to the town's old library. After Emma remembered Regina's instructions, she took the elevator down to the basement alone. Prince David broke into Maleficent's castle and demanded to see the beast. There was no beast here except her. David was being chased, and he had to find a way to throw the egg into Maleficent's stomach. Although this task was a bit difficult, the prince still completed it excellently. He left without any damage. 28 years later, it was his daughter's turn to struggle to get the egg out of the beast's stomach. Seeing this giant underground dragon, Emma threw away her sword and took out her gun to shoot. While Emma was struggling with it, Mary at the hospital discovered that Henry's index had suddenly deteriorated. While the doctors and nurses were concentrating on giving Henry a cardiac shock, Edward quietly entered Regina's secret cellar and drugged the nurse there. He released Bella and told her to find a man named Gold. She told him where she was and that Regina had locked her up. He would protect her and know what to do. The prince came to take the ring from Rambo's hand. He really wanted to know why Rambo wanted to help him and Snow White. What would Rambo get in it? Rambo said that he admired true love. The important thing was what true love would give birth to. The gun ran out of bullets, so Emma had to use her sword. Then she took the opportunity to throw it into the monster's chest. In the blink of an eye, it turned to ashes. Only the egg containing true love remained. Prince David followed the ring's instructions and found Snow White. When he kissed her goodbye, Snow White woke up. Then the prince proposed to her. It was time for them to chase King George and Regina out of the castle. Halfway up, the elevator stopped. Mr. Gold stuck his head out and said that Regina had left. When Emma got there, it was too late, so she should give him the egg first. Emma climbed up and found out that he had tricked her. They were about to chase after him when they received a call from the hospital. When they arrived, they only received a shake of the head from the doctor. Henry was dead. Returning to the store, Mr. Gold opened the egg to check. The potion containing true love was still intact. At this time, Bella came to find him. Mr. Gold looked at the person he truly loved standing in front of him and couldn't help but hug her. Emma painfully kissed Henry's forehead. A miracle had happened. At the same time, a colorful light spread throughout the town. The curse had been broken. The fairy tale characters also regained their memories. They also knew who the mayor was. There was no magic in this world, so they weren't afraid of Regina. Regina said her last words to Henry and then ran home. David was on his way out of town when he also returned to find Mary. Snow White and the prince finally returned together. At this time, Bella in the forest remembered who Mr. Gold was, but he didn't rejoice for too long, because there was still an important thing to do. They came to the well containing water from the magic lake. After he dropped the potion containing true love down, purple smoke quickly spread out of the mouth of the well. It created a thick purple mist. Everyone had a bad feeling, except for Rambo and Regina. There was no magic in this land. He had just brought it back when time stopped again at 8:15. The movie ended here. Thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you again.